This episode of WrapOn Podcast is brought to you by Brothers Chemical. Brothers Chemical manufactures Vinyl Off and Ghost Off, two of the finest removal and fleet restoration products on the market. And they've just released their Adhesive Off Pro, a low evaporating, fast action glue remover that cuts through adhesive residue better than anything else on the market, saving you time and money on your next removal. Find Adhesive Off Pro at select retailers and online at brotherschemical.com. Use code WRAPON for free shipping on your first online order. That's brotherschemical.com.
Also brought to you by Signburst Workstations, graphic design and RIP computers for sign and vehicle wrap shops.
All right, let's go. So, thanks for coming.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be up here.
Hanging out. I've harassed you enough to where I think you felt like you had to come see me.
Maybe not harass is not the right word, but you've definitely inquired a few times about when I'd be in the area. So I made sure to stop through when I was in the area. I didn't realize how close you were to the zoo here in Asheboro as well.
Yep. So a lot of people don't realize, like, that's kind of, Asheboro is known for just a couple of things. Like spandex is like a big one, like the hosiery stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure that it was invented here, if not here, really close.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then the zoo. Sure. That's pretty much what we have.
I only knew about the zoo.
Yeah. Now you know about spandex.
Absolutely.
It's whenever I reference the shop, I always say the jail.
Okay.
Because it's like 3 blocks up the street or something, right?
You get a lot of people from there? No, okay.
But it wasn't long ago. Dana, she asked me about it. She was like, why don't you say like the zoo?
Sure.
That makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more welcoming.
Safer feeling.
She was like, people probably don't want to come because you're telling them that you're next door to a jail.
And that's why you need all the extra lights outside.
Correct.
I'm getting it now. It's all coming
circle. Together.
Yeah, full circle.
But yeah, so it seems like, I think the reason, obviously you being close, right? You've got a good business. We're in the same industry, but the round table, I think that's what does it. Like for me, like to provoke you, because it's like, once a week, a lot of these people I don't get to see once a week. For you, like I'm kind of seeing, at least feels like it's pretty regular.
Sure.
Like I get to see it. And we talked about it a little bit. And we'll probably jump around here just because, like I said, we
both have ADD.
Yeah, correct. Well, and we've been talking, so it's like I think about like, so we even today we talked about the round table just a little while ago.
Sure.
But I really don't even know like where it came from or why. I mean, you said it on the way here a little bit, like it was just kind of something to, break some walls, break some barriers. Yeah. Maybe for you personally, but it's kind of I guess that's probably a cool thing. Like maybe just tell what it is and how you got into it.
So we call it the Rappers Roundtable, and the way it kind of came about, and it's kind of shifted in how we did it since the very first few times. But during COVID, when no one could do anything, everyone was stuck in their house, and some businesses were closed, some weren't. I was in a local business group. I say local, within a couple hours of my town. And it was my business coach. And then once a month, we would typically meet as a group of business owners. And we would all meet up somewhere, and we would have this half a day session going over different things. And part of that, when we would meet up, would be is like a round table of people helping each other with their whatever issues they had in their business. Now,
same industries or
no, all different industries. Okay. It could be home service, doctors, attorneys. I mean, whoever he was coaching at the time, those were the people that were there in that room. Construction, all kinds of things. And so I was the only wrap shop or sign shop, and that's kind of how it started, right? And so we would do these, and then when COVID came, we had to do them virtually. And the way we would do it would be is we're all in this same virtual room, and we would go around the room and you'd ask a question. So if you think about it like a clock, right? We'd start at 12, then 1, then 2, and so on.
Sure.
So when person number 2 asked or it stated what they were going through, person number 3 would be the first one to answer, and then 4. When number 6 had a question, the first person to answer would be number 7. So it would always go one around. So by the time it got around to back to number 5, let's say, it already might have been covered. and you would just pass. Right. And so I was like, man, this would be kind of cool to do this virtually for the wrap industry. Yeah. Same type of structure where we would be helping each other. It wasn't about me trying to just do this or do that, right? Yeah. It was just a place to where everyone was stuck inside. There was no trade shows at the time. How could we get back together? Because if you've ever been to the trade shows, which of course you have, one of the best things is the networking, the getting together with the other people. The trade shows are fine. We don't go for that. We all go to be with the rest of our industry.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my thought. I was at the time,
that networking at the shows is all the value, and it's like it's where the real stuff comes out.
And what is this saying? Like your network is your net worth.
There you go. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so similar, right? And it's like, okay, how can we, of course, not duplicate a trade show, but how can we get the same camaraderie that we had, and then two, help each other.
Yeah, because that's hard to duplicate because you're there in person. There's no real accountability, so you get the real raw, uncut. Like the guy's standing at the end of the bar having a few drinks, and all of a sudden he's like, "Man, are you dealing with X, Y?" And then you're like, "Yes,
exactly."
How do you handle?
Exactly.
It's like this soft thing.
In everything, it don't matter if you've been in business for a year or 10 or 20. There's things that you're going through that might be a first time at 20 years, but someone else, maybe at 2 or 3 years, they've already gone through it.
Yeah.
And so kind of how could we help each other grow the industry, have the networking, have that face-to-face somewhat, even if it's virtual, that we missed. And that's kind of where it started. And at the time I was living, we had, our house got destroyed in Hurricane Florence. And so I was living at my brother's house, which started out as going to be one night until the hurricane blew over to 5 years later, we were still there.
Oh, wow.
And so it was in my dining room at my brother's house with a laptop. Okay. And there was no plan. It was, I posted it, I think on the Wrap Society, here's what I'm looking at doing. And the round table just came from, thinking about everyone, like how I used to do them in my business group was this big round table. And that's kind of how it came about. And so that's pretty much how it started. I had no idea if it was going to be 1 week or 20. I didn't know. And so we just started it. And I posted this message. Anyone who wants to be part of it, shoot me an email, and Neil was always great about me doing that on there because, again, there was nothing to gain on my end. There was no charge for it. It was just a way to everyone to get back together.
Yeah, it's pretty cool watching it as it's kind of, the other night I was on there, Zach was on there from Brothers Chemical, and it was really cool to see, like, I think at one point there was like 50 people in there. Yeah,
50 people. That's been, it depends. If we have a guest, we've had it as high as 100, 110.
That's wild.
And then if we don't have a guest, it's 20 to 25 is kind of our average.
Sure.
But at the same time, I don't really want it to get super big. Currently we've got about 450 to 500 people that have inquired about it that I have in the email list. Yeah. But of course, it's a fraction of those, and it's always going to be because the time of day, things, some people's convenient, some people's not. But we ran it pretty consistently for, I don't know, probably a year-ish. Yeah. And then around that time, about the end of that time, I was finally getting into my house that we had rebuilt. And then my kids, I have two little ones, which they're 5 and 7 now. At that time, they would have been like probably 3 and 5 or 4 and 6, probably 3 and 5. And they were starting their after-school activities and their, dance and soccer and t-ball and all of these things that I've never gone through with kids before leading up to that. And so it became difficult for me to do this in the evenings because of that. So we kind of had a little hiatus, right, where I just slowed it down some. And then once I got moved into the new place, I had an office set up, a private space. I didn't have to take my equipment down every time. I could just leave it there. And so then we brought it back again. And it was good, and I'm trying to have a little bit different format. And again, some weeks we don't have it. Honestly, today's a Tuesday. I don't even know if I'm going to have it yet tonight because I'm here right now.
Sure.
And so, after this, I got to go to a shop. And so, we kind of play it by ear most weeks. If I know I can't, of course, we plan it. But, I brought all my equipment. So I might have it from a hotel room tonight. We'll see.
Got it. Okay.
And so that's kind of, how it goes. We try to get a guest every, other episode or so if we can line some up, that want to do it. But again, the whole point was in the beginning was to have everyone help each other.
Sure.
And that's been great. We do get a lot of people that, maybe they're working or doing something. They just want to listen. Perfectly fine. And then we get others that turn on their camera and participate. Again, some people, depending on the week, can, some weeks can't the other week, but they're still there to listen and maybe just, post a comment if they need to or have a question.
I still get nervous interjecting in there. I don't know why. Like I can feel it in my gut. Like
Sure.
I want to go say something and I'll be like, hey, hang on, don't say that. Wait, and it's like I get in my head and I'm like, because
the imposter syndrome,
it's
right?
so strange. Dude.
It is.
It's so weird because I can train like you put me
Sure.
in front of 20, 30 people. I can train a class, no problem. Videos, podcasts, whatever, none of that stuff. But you get in that room and it's like a whole nother level of like,
And I think that goes back to like, probably when we were even now, but like everyone was like, once it's on the internet, it's always on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So like when it's recorded or when you're there with a group of people, and it's live, it's like, okay, if I say something wrong an hour from now, they're going to forget what the hell I said and we're good, you know? But like if there's a documentation of it, of me being an idiot, that it's like, that's always there.
Right.
And I think that kind of plays in the back of everyone's mind too. And even when I kind of started this, like I still don't like being in the spotlight. Like that's not my goal. I don't really care for that. I've learned to embrace it a little bit more and be more at ease with it. And
because it does need a little order, a little, you know what I mean? Like you got to have somebody that's
a moderator.
Exactly.
And that's great. And I try to, of course, do that role, but, it's different when you're in front of a bunch of your peers.
Sure.
When you're in front of a bunch of new students or in front of your team at your shop, it's different, right?
Whole different ball game.
Yeah, but these are your peers, right?
And it's a little bit vulnerable because you're in there learning.
Sure.
And you're in there with a bunch of very educated, very seasoned, some, I shouldn't say a lot, but just it's a mixed crowd, right? And so you're almost being a little bit vulnerable as you're talking about this stuff because you are trying to learn and get educated and, in certain, it's just a lot of these people have never been put in a situation where it's like a mastermind environment, right? Where you've got people that, I think it was John Carthy the other night was like, I can't remember exactly what the topic was, but it was something where he was like, that's a good idea.
Sure.
I think that sounds great. I could try that. I could give that a shot. And I'm like,
it was the remover.
But it was something, I can't remember if it's like specifically what it was, but it was something in there where he was like,
and you're talking about a guy who's probably been in it longer than anybody.
Right.
I mean, Jim, like, a lot of people say is Jim Miller was one of the first. Jim was like a toddler when John Carthy started doing this, right? I mean, like, really, like, he's been in it for so long that it's just crazy when he gets in the room, how much knowledge he has. And most of the people ever on that round table have no clue who John is.
Right.
Right. In respecting and knowing that where this industry has come from and how much he has seen in it through the years. It's great having him on there because he does bring a ton of that knowledge that most people had. It's crazy how many people now would even realize that there didn't used to be air egress in vinyl.
Sure.
And that wasn't that long ago. 20 years ago was when it was first kind of coming out with air egress, right? And how far people have come. And
John had a whole career.
Oh, yeah. An entire career before air egress.
Right. Yeah.
It's the craziest thing when you think about it. But, same. And, and so that kind of is kind of how it is. And we kind of keep it free flowing. So whatever we're going to talk about that night is what we're going to talk about. Yeah. And if people want to either private message me a question that they maybe don't want to ask, or if they want to, put it in the chat, whatever. Like I try to keep it as easy and so people don't get stage fright. And I do. I get a lot of people that just type a question to me in the chat or they'll DM me ahead of time like, hey, tonight I'm going to be on. Don't really want to ask this in front of a group of people, but here's my question.
Do you prep?
Zero.
Really?
Zero prep.
That's funny.
Not even when I have a guest. Zero. There is no prep that's involved. It is even when they ask me like, hey, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. Zero prep. And so I prefer it that way because it comes off more natural and I don't know where it's going to go. They don't know where it's going to go.
I don't know if it comes off natural, to be honest with you, because it seems like you are prepared every single time.
Never.
Like you asked the best question.
Never.
Like
it's all a spur of the moment it comes to my head.
When they were talking about doing the PID shows thing at WrapsCon, as soon as they were like, well, we need to think. I'm saying, Chris Ulmer, he's the guy.
Well, even like the questions that we did at WrapsCon, nothing's rehearsed. Like
none of it.
It was funny because, I asked Austin, I said, is there anything that I need to cover? Sure. Right. Because like I knew the premise of what the show or the PID shows, but I didn't really get all into it, to know exactly what it was going to be
Well, it
about.
hadn't been launched yet.
Correct.
Right? Like, so
Correct.
really everybody was still trying to figure out what it was.
And that's right. And I said, so if there's something that you need me to cover, let me know.
Right.
If there's not, we're just going to go. And he said, well, I have some questions here. They're not geared towards any person, but he said, if you get stuck, reference these. And I was like, okay. And then I don't think I ever looked at them. Like I glanced at them one time and I was like,
That's so funny.
I think I've already asked those,
Yeah.
And so, I looked at each person and I knew everyone up there.
Sure.
And I tried to get something that was engaging to them, that I felt that they could, add value to,
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the goal, whether it's the round table or anything else, is just, adding value where I can, not necessarily by myself adding the value, but maybe me posing the right questions to someone so that they can add the right value.
Sure.
And a lot of that, even on the round table, these are questions I have. Some of the questions I'm asking is questions that I have. Maybe that.
Yeah, you're just curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is how I do something, but I'm sure there's a better way.
Yeah.
Or this is how they do it, and or what's some mistakes you've made or they've made, and let's not make them again. And
Get better.
Exactly, as an industry, right? And not worrying about what team you're on or what this or what that. Like we all have we put sticky shit on stuff.
Sure.
I mean, that's what we do.
Yep.
And how can we make that better in every aspect, not just for us, but for our team and for our customers.
So as it's funny because you asked me a similar question at PID, and just listening to you and watching what you're doing, and you got a lot of shit going on. You know what I mean? Like you, for some reason, when people look at me, they're like, dude, you got all this stuff going on. It appears that way. And then somebody may look at you and be like, oh no, Chris owns a wrap shop there. And it's like, nah, you take 5 minutes and listen to him. Like he's got all these different things going on. So I say all that to say, you asked me how I do it. And maybe I don't have the best answer, right? Because my personality type is that kind of just mash the gas, make it happen, get it done, whatever it takes. And there's a lot of, that's not all sunshine and rainbows,
unicorns and fairies.
It's not. It's dangerous and messy at times, and we drop the ball. But you don't come off as that guy. You never have. Like you seem a lot more organized and like reserved and very. I don't know. But then, like I said, I listen to you and you've got clubs, you've got kids, you're doing stuff with your wife. You're also part of different organizations. You're a trainer. So you equally have if not more shit going on than I do. How do you do it?
A lot of medicine? No.
I'm medicated.
Alcohol, medicine? No, none of that. I guess it's through the years I have, I would say, and I think actually it was funny because John Carthy and I had a little bit of this conversation a couple of weeks ago. I've never been like the young guy in the room, whether like mentally wise, right? When I was in high school, I'm hanging out with older people. When I was 20, I'm hanging out with 40 and 50-year-olds. When I'm 30, I'm hanging out with 50. It's always been that way. I've never really had a lot of that, like just go out and have fun. I've always been like business from high school, with everything I did. Even as a teenager, I was 12 years old hiring other kids my age to clean up yards after hurricanes, right? And I've always just kind of done that type of thing. And a lot of it has been not necessarily me physically doing it, but getting the task done, meaning hiring the right people or the right team, making sure that I have people in place that can help me with whatever it is that I'm doing. So to say I'm doing this by myself is not the case at all. I have an incredible team all around me in everything that I do, whether it's, doing trainings with manufacturers and they have a great team that assists with whatever it is. Or if I'm, one of my businesses, there's a great team that's in place there that helps in every step of the way. Like I am very much a visionary in that and making sure that I get the team around me that can get the task completely done. And it took me a long time to get out of my own way and know that I can't do it all.
Sure.
And that, I think the saying is 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. Right. So there's a lot of these tasks that are completely done better than I could ever do them. But there's some that maybe if that's my wheelhouse, that's my niche area, I might be able to do a better job than something, but then it requires a lot of my time. And can I get the right people that will get 80% there, and then with some guidance and some help, they'll get that last 20%, right? And so can I assemble those people around me to help with those things. And no, it's not always a perfect fit. And if anyone's ever had any employees or team members, you know that, right? And so while I haven't always picked the right people, I've hopefully fast enough figured that out and, went a different way, or made it work. So there is a lot of things that I have going on. But to be honest, it doesn't hardly seem in my head that I've even started. Right. Like it feels like I'm doing nothing, and that's always been a big thing for me. Even in personal life, like my wife, Vanessa, will tell you, like when we go on a vacation or go somewhere, I can't sit still. Right. And so even if I've accomplished a lot compared to maybe some in my own head, that self-doubt imposter syndrome is like, I've done nothing. Like when I get up in the morning at 4:30 to start my day, I'm like, yeah, but what could I get done if I got up at 3? But something like that, like it's that never good enough mentality for myself.
Where do you think that comes from?
That perfectionism that can't be obtained, part of that just working as hard as I can on everything. And in my own head, never feels like it's enough.
You think it's an internal thing, or
that's completely internal?
Yeah,
like it was never from my parents. It was never from anything else.
Yeah.
My grandfather, he's been in the bowling business since 1955, and so growing up, I was always there with him. I was working there as a child and an adult, and
it was
forever
a turnkey bowling alley. So it had
everything.
You go in, rent your shoes, rent a ball, and
restaurant, bar,
really,
all of it. Yeah.
That's cool.
And so
you grew up in a bowling alley,
and still am, right? So still in the business,
really.
Mm-hmm. And so, he worked till basically the day he passed away. And so I've always had that kind of in me. About now they never kind of deviated from bowling.
Sure.
They'd always kind of stayed in that lane. And for me, I have been and go down that lane. It's kind of funny, bowling lane. Anyway.
I thought it was a pun.
It wasn't a pun intentionally.
That was nailed.
Nailed it.
That was
though.
beautiful.
Wasn't the case, but it worked well.
Take it. Josh, pull that out. Make a note. We're going to give him credit for the pun. That's perfect.
But once we started going down there, I've saw what I learned and then applied that in a lot of the other places that I've done or work with or own or whatever the case is. So the vinyl industry and the graphic stuff kind of happened out of accident in a way. Another business that I had at the time needed some of it, and I didn't have anywhere in my town, but I always had an interest in custom cars, and I was into this custom stereos and all that stuff back in like the late 90s and the lowrider stuff. Not really as lowriders much, but mini truck and things like that.
Sure.
And so it was kind of a natural progression, I feel, in that way. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what got me in it. And then once I was in it, I was like, man, there's so many ways to make this work, whether it's the custom side, the business side, B2B, B2C, whatever the case is. And then since then, of course, we've niched down. But, back then in like 2004, 2005, we were very much I was very much wanting to go down I want to do the mini truck and wraps, like a wrap, but they're usually painting them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it went. But
that's what got you into it?
Yeah, exactly. Really? That was more what got me into it from that perspective.
It's so funny because people's creative outlets, art to me is really over the last few years has been very interesting, right? Mm-hmm. It's super subjective, obviously, sure. Right? But you start looking at people and where their interests are, mm-hmm. And, when I think about based off the conversations we have, mm-hmm. generally, we're going to hit on some business stuff and mm-hmm. we're going to talk about process and procedure, sure. And I'm into that. I mm-hmm. think that that's super cool. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily my creative outlet, but for some people it is. Mm-hmm. That's their space. Now, mm-hmm. I would even go as far to say people think traditional art, they think of, maybe musicians or an artist that's taking mm-hmm. murals or something like that. But for people that are creating processes and procedures, to me, it's I start seeing that as oh wow, these people are equally as creative, mm-hmm. but in this other little space of it's very specific. Sure. It requires some a lot of thought and a lot of effort, and it's a whole lot less recognizable, right? Like you probably
Less
hear
sexy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's cool. You know what I mean? Because like all this stuff is built on that.
Sure.
Right? Without it, it doesn't work. But it's funny because I'm sitting here thinking that as you're talking, I'm like, I wonder if people really get that, like that whole process, like the creativeness or your ability to do that. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I was just into mini trucks and it's just cool. Like I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have never thought that like. I don't know.
It was different, right? And back then it was something that I was just into. And this was a way.
And it's cool. Like, I get it.
And I couldn't paint vehicles back then. I could design the wrap. I remember drawing out, paint schemes for some vehicles I had back then, and then taking it to someone to get a vehicle painted or whatever. I was like, man, it just took a year and a half to paint that, right? Like I could do this. I mean, now we could do it in 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah.
And so, kind of seeing those worlds that were going to merge, and how I could maybe get ahead of that and start doing it, and again, in the beginning, it was more selfish to do my own stuff because it was cool.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I really enjoy this, and so by 06, 06, I guess I had my first building and started it, and I remember my very first truck that I wrapped was an F-250. And I lined up the hood to the sides, to the tailgate, to the roof, everything lined up back then. Cool. And I printed it one piece at a time because I had to tweak the design as I go because I had no clue how to do it another way.
That's cool.
And it was a ton of what's the company that has all the fills and the designs? Aurora.
Yeah.
A ton of Aurora graphics in it, right? Like it was just.
Was it personal or did you do
it? Was personal.
Personal truck.
Yeah. It was personal. I had just got a building. I got all my equipment and I was like, well, I didn't even, there was no commercial wraps. To me, the only direction was custom designs, B2C.
Before we move too far away from it, I've asked you before, you bowl.
Not as much anymore.
But you
used to. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you so you don't, it's not something you're doing regular anymore?
No. So I used to bowl competitively. I bowled in college.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And then I've had 4 back surgeries. So back surgery number 3, they messed up my leg, right? And so, I can't, if you're into bowling, if you bowl right-handed, you slide with your left foot. And so it's my left foot that's messed up, right? And so I'm in a brace that the current brace I have allows a little bit of movement, but it's kind of like wearing a cast. You can't move it very much. And so if you think about most sports or most things that anyone does, your mental game is typically behind, meaning if you're going to play, let's use bowling, use any sport, like mentally you think you're doing right because your mental game hasn't prepared you to go to the next step, even in business. Your brain kind of slows you down from being able to make the next move, right? Because you don't know what it is. You're doing what you do to the best of your ability.
Sure.
Okay, because you don't know any better. You don't know that this is how you're supposed to wrap that corner. You don't know how this is what you're supposed to do there. So imagine if we relate this to wrapping, you don't know you should pre-stretch a corner. You just do it. You don't know why it doesn't work.
Sure.
But now imagine knowing that you're supposed to pre-stretch that, but you can't do it. Right? In wrapping might be stupid for that analogy.
No, but physically, if something happens to your hands and you can't physically do it.
There you go. Mentally, I'm a 220, 230 average bowler. Physically, I can't do that anymore. So it was super frustrating to the point where to bowl right-handed, I couldn't do what I mentally knew how to do. And from trying it and physically with like this basically like a cast on, you couldn't slide right. And so I stopped bowling for a while. Well, then I missed it, wanted to go back again. It's in my blood, basically. I tell you, when I was born on lane 16.
So you love it. Like
it's always been a passion for me, right? So then I'm like, all right, I'm going to start bowling again, but I'm going to bowl left-handed. I'm not left-handed, but I'm going to do it, right? And so I switched to left-handed. I don't even wear bowling shoes. I walk up there in tennis shoes, and I can still average 170, 180. And so I ended up winning a tournament left-handed. Don't even know how to bowl left-handed, right? Because again, mentally, I'm a 232 or 220, 230 average. Just left-handed, I'm not that, but at least I was better left-handed at that point than I was right-handed because I could at least do more. And then it got back to that mental frustration again, even after some practicing, that it's just like, I'm not a left-handed bowler. Like I got, so anyway, so my wife and I bowled a little bit, I couldn't, but I wanted to be competitive.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because I'm a very competitive person and I couldn't quite compete how I wanted to.
And that's something somebody could really miss about you as well, because you don't come off that way, right? Cool, calm, and collective.
But it's competitive within myself, not necessarily against other people. I mean, even like rap competitions, like no one wants to lose. No one wants to do worse than they did the previous time. It's like better and better and better. And everything, and
I'm hyper competitive.
Oh yeah,
I'm hyper competitive with me, with everybody else. It doesn't.
We go to wrap something, and like, I bet I can wrap that box truck 20 minutes faster than even if it's better than I did yesterday.
That's right.
Right, like and so that's part of it. So I guess to kind of steer off the bowling, it's just I couldn't be as competitive as I wanted, and so I just don't do it as much. I'm still there a lot. I'm in the process of acquiring it now. But I still love the industry. I've served in similar type organizations in that industry. I've been the state president for the youth back in the day. I've done a lot in that industry through the years, not in the last 10 as much more focused on the rap industry, just because one's like a passion that I created and one's like family. Right. And so kind of creating my own legacy and my own path, and something that had nothing to do with family was also important in a way. And so that's kind of how it got me down in this industry.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's listening to you talk about it, like you can almost hear it in your voice. 'Cause when you get into something like that, it's hard to shake it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I grew up racing, and I thought at some point I had an opportunity to become a driving instructor, right? So I would go and I'd do the driving instructing thing, and then I get into it, and it made it worse.
Sure.
I couldn't, because you're not being competitive. When you're teaching somebody, you're not being competitive.
Sure.
But you're getting that little bit of dose of it every once in a while, where it's like it keeps it fresh, where you're like, well, man, this thing feels good. This is this. And so the next thing you know, you're out buying a race car or buying, you know what I mean? Like, and you're back at the track again. I just told Josh the other day, I was like, I can feel it.
The itch.
I'm going to have to, I got to go. And and he's laughing because he gets it too.
Sure.
So, but a lot of people don't see that from him either. They don't think of him as being competitive, but it's like, dude, he's probably more competitive than I am.
And I do get it from time to time. Like, my kids bowl in the kids bowling leagues, and we're the coach of the kids bowling leagues. And there'll be times, like, it might be 2 or 3 months. It doesn't even bother me. And all of a sudden I go back in the pro shop, where we have a pro shop in the bowling center, and one of my bowling balls is still sitting there, and I'll pick it up and I'll get mad and I'll go out there and try it for a game or two just to see whatever, and then I get frustrated again, or go back and I put it back in there and put my shoes back on or whatever, and take the kids home, and then we go do the next activity. So
my brother, he used to tell me when we were younger that he enjoyed watching me race more than he did. And I never understood it. When my son, he wanted to try racing out, and we took him racing. It was not enjoyable for me. My stomach was in knots. I'm worried something's going to happen to him. My daughter tried it. Completely different experience. And I think she was a little bit older, maybe a little bit more mature. Sure. She listens really well. My son's a good kid, but he's
a boy.
He's a boy. Whereas she was so dialed. Man, I enjoyed watching her.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And I got that same feeling of it, like it was a comparable, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess your kids are still pretty young. Yeah. So it's like, they're probably not to that point yet where they're.
We just did go-karts the first time the other day. Yeah. And so, it was funny seeing both their reactions. My daughter, very much like your children, my daughter is very reserved, very strategic, very much like me in that aspect. And then my son is very much like my wife, and which is, like all over the place kind of thing, and bouncing off the couch and everything else. And so we get them in these go-karts, and my daughter wants to ride with me because neither one of them is old enough to drive them themselves. Sure. And my son wanted to ride with my wife, Vanessa. And then we did a couple of races, then we switched. And to see, from them riding their reactions and how it was different, it was kind of crazy. Was my daughter, again, the reserve one, was having probably more fun yelling and screaming than my son was, and I'm like, what have you got bottled up inside here? We go over some of these turns, and my daughter's screaming out, this is the best day of my life, and we're just going around a go-kart track, and it was all fun until it started sprinkling. And then in my head, I'm like, sweet, wet track. I'm sliding around turns and everything. And then before they shut it down, and my daughter was terrified because now she's getting pelted with rain. And, but anyway, it was a good time. My son was still loving it, and they tell you to slow down. Of course, no one does. Cause again, it's a wet track. You just keep sliding through the turns. It's great. But
no, I love it. I'm for all of it. Like I said, there's you try to balance it because, you know, my wife makes great arguments for like, you know, you're getting older. You got to be smart. You got to be safe. You can't be getting hurt. You know, you don't need to push yourself. You know, and time, you know, like we were talking about earlier, like you have to be careful because you do need to make time for yourself and enjoy yourself. But at the same time, like, you know, you sit on a couple of boards, you're training, you know what I mean? Like it goes, and then we were just talking about you were gone for 10 days and it had nothing to do with work or anything else. It was just a
vacation.
Yeah. To enjoy yourself.
Yeah. There was, I want to say we did a little tally back end of June. And for the first basically half of the year, I was gone at some point every week except for 2. Sure. So in 6 months of the year, every week I was somewhere. Now, again, I was home every weekend unless it was a family trip. And it might only been 1 or 2 days, but it was still, you know, and so several things. One, having an amazing wife at home that can help with the kids.
Sure.
I have my parents that also, and her parents, her mother, live very close by.
That's nice.
That helps,
Heck yeah.
when we don't, or when we have to go somewhere and the kids can't go. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I think a lot of it is, again, just having the right team in place. I mean, like, you know, I talk with my kids every day, read them bedtime stories till at night, every day. So things like that, I try, you know, those are like, you know, non-negotiables. I do that every day. Talk to them when they get out of school, talk to them in the morning before they go to school, read them bedtime stories every night, you know, all that kind of stuff. So even if I'm away, it's still the same.
There. Yeah.
Exactly. And I learned, you know, early on that my daughter would be the one who would get the most upset. I guess maybe that's the right word, but she would be the one that would be sad when I was leaving more. And so I had like a whole routine I had to go through. It would start like 2 days before I left. I had to, you know, let her know that I'd be leaving soon. Sure. And, you know, she could always call me. And like, if I'm in the middle of a class and she's calling me, I still answer, you know, because at the end of the day, I don't, you know, of course I'd like to be there and teach these classes, but that's not what's most important to me. So if they can't understand that, then sorry, then I'll go another route, you know? And so like for me, I do those things. I'm fortunate enough that all of those other things I do is because I want to do them. Sure. I don't need any of them, right? It's strictly a love of the industry and I want to do them because typically, you would know, and probably a lot of our viewers, like, you know, it's great to do those things, but most of the time, if we're busy at home, from a monetary standpoint, we typically make more at home, right? Like, and then the traveling, we travel because we love it, or you love the travel, you love there's some part of that is self-serving in a way, and you like that. Oh yeah. And so that's part of it, right? And so, you know, and it's the same with me. It's, you know, if I couldn't travel and do the different things that I do, I'd be completely fine. You know, so as long as I love doing that, I'm good with it, you know?
Yeah, it kind of checks both boxes.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, where you can, you know, people appreciate your being there. You appreciate being there. It's
that's right.
Like, you know, and long term, it's better for everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a really cool thing. So you've mentioned Vanessa a couple times. Mm-hmm. So
she's the little one that you can't see. It's just the eyebrows up on my social media.
It's so funny. So for her, you mentioned that she's a mom. Like she's doing the momming, but she's also involved with the business stuff too. Because I see her at the shows, I see her posting on social, right? Like, I mean, she's involved. Like it's
So Vanessa and I's history. So we met back in 2001. She worked at the bowling center.
Really?
She worked over there, and at that time, I also had another family entertainment center next door to the bowling center that I had built and owned. And so she had helped over there as well. And her family was friends with my family.
Is she a bowler?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. No. But she
it just happened to be a job just to kind of.
Correct. Well, see, she had just moved to our area, and her nephew played baseball with my brother.
Okay.
They're the same age. And so we met at a baseball game, at a kid's baseball game. And then so she started working at the bowling center, and then, and anyway, so we back then we never dated or anything. She moved away. She ended up getting married, moved to California. And then fast forward, I don't remember how many years was after that, but she found me online. We started talking again.
That's wild.
And next thing you know, she moved back out there again. And so she had been divorced for several years. She moved back out there again. And then we hit it off again, and she never left. And,
That's cool.
She tells everyone that we've been together for whatever, this year will be 25 years, but we haven't, right? It's just in her head. She'll always tell you that she used to want to date me back then. And then I kept telling her no and chasing everything else. And there's probably a little bit of truth to that, or a lot of truth to that. But, and I told her, I said, if we had been together back then, it might not have worked out the same.
Sure.
Because we both are different people now than we were then. And so it could have been different. But so when she moved out here, she's only ever been in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
Hospitals, doctors' offices, things like that. And so that's where she was at. And so she worked at our hospital. We have one hospital in our town. She worked there, and then it didn't work out. And so when she was leaving the hospital, I had told her that, look, I need somebody that can help with sales and things. At that point in time, I was kind of doing everything on the front end of the house myself. I was still doing some installing. We had a team of, I think, 2 people plus myself, so 3 altogether. Mm-hmm. And I just needed some help, and she knew nothing about it other than the little bit of time we had been together at that point, and her coming in,
Sure.
when she got off work every day. And so that was kind of the extent. So she kind of stepped into that role and helped with sales with no intent on staying there or being there, because one, she knew nothing about it, and 2, she didn't really have a desire to do it. It was a job, right?
She seems like a natural salesperson.
Well, she's great at talking, and that's part of it, right? And
not just that.
But I mean, she's good at conversation.
She's charming.
You get someone that comes in with a complete shitbox, and she can still tell them how great it is. And I struggle sometimes to hold back. Right. And it's and anyway, so she's very good at, no matter what, engaging with that person,
right.
And that helps on the sales side.
100%.
Great is just a great personal quality.
Yeah.
Because whether or not, and she was telling me, I have a lot of that resting bitch face or whatever it is, but she's like, I don't care what you're saying. Your face is telling me that you don't like that, or that doesn't work. So, she'll tell me to fix my face a lot, and we're sitting there, if it's a restaurant and something's going on, even if I don't say it, she'll say, you need to fix your face. So,
it's funny.
She started working there and helping out, and, she's helped grow it. We're a team of 12, 13 people now.
Sure.
And so she's been a large part of that, because it allows me to focus more of the things that I'm very good at, and in her helping, implement those things,
Sure.
if you want to go down that, like the visionary and the integrator, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so she was very good at that role and helping with that. And so that's kind of how she's been in it. And, since then, she's never owned her own business, so this is kind of the first step in that way. And then we've either opened or purchased several other places since then, and she assists with those as well. Again, her main role is in the wrap shop, just like that's my main role.
Sure.
And we're there every day unless we're traveling or something. But, and so she helps do that. And in a way, it was really good, because as a business owner, a lot of times, getting out of our own way, it's hard sometimes when we know everything about it to just not do it. Well, what was good when she first started was she knew nothing about it. And so not only as she's learning, but we're creating, training and processes and procedures as she's learning them for everything, right? So that kind of helped with that, because okay, as I'm teaching you, we're going to document it. And I'm going to teach you the next thing, we're going to document it. And so it's a living organism. And as we change and evolve, that's all changing and evolving. And she's been a big part of that and helping all that, work its way to where we're at now. And then the whole going with us and stuff, she's created, a great name for herself and being a female in the wrap industry, which is very small group of women that are in it.
Yeah.
And she's got her own friends and her own thing. But I mean, a lot of people ask how we do it, because we are literally around each other 24 hours a day. I mean, every day, unless we're traveling. But even then, if I'm not traveling by myself, then we're still together.
Yeah.
And we never fight. It's just, we have our lanes, we have our roles, and we kind of stick to them. And my current business coach that I have, when he first started working with me, I've had coaches for, I don't know, probably 6 years or so now. But the one that I've got now, I absolutely love this gentleman. And he, the first conversation that we'd had, he was talking to me about it. And I said, we struggle sometimes with learning who's the visionary and who's the integrator at work. And he said, oh, I can tell you that. I've had one conversation with you two. And I said, okay, who? And he said, Vanessa, what time does Chris ask you what's for dinner? And she said, sometimes before we ever get out of bed in the morning. He said, he's a visionary. And he said, and when do you ask? He's like, I don't know, we're about to eat. And she's like, you're the integrator. Yeah. And so this guy knew me for 45 minutes.
Sure.
And he pegged us exactly what we do. And then really once we kind of went down that path, it made things much more clear in our work environment, in our home environment. And she'll even say, we get home sometimes, she'll be like, we're not at work anymore, right? I need to
cut it off.
Yeah. Or, no more. And even my 7-year-old now, if we're at dinner and work comes up, she'll say, Daddy, we're not supposed to talk about work. I said, baby, you're absolutely right. And this has been going on since we were 5. Or since she was 5. And so we try, and I'm not, of course, if you do work together, that things come up,
sure.
But when we are with the kids, we try not to do it. Sometimes they might be watching cartoons, and then it's not that it's okay, but I'm not taken away from that time.
Sure.
Right. But yeah, so she works with me every day. We're around each other 24 hours a day. We never want to strangle each other. It's very rare.
Josh, can we get a eyes up photo of Vanessa real quick? I feel like we wouldn't be doing ourselves any justice here.
And when we get this up on the monitor, I can even tell you how this started. So we love Charleston, South Carolina. We go down there a couple times a year. We try to. And so one evening we were at some rooftop bar at a hotel there, and there was a beautiful sunset. And also there was, I think, one of those clock towers or something back there.
Sure.
But beautiful sunset. And she's like, oh, let's get a picture in front of this. Perfect. Right now, I am as clunky as you can be with a selfie. The tism kicks in and I can't hold that phone right. Okay. And so anyway, so we're standing there and I am trying everything to get the sun and the clock tower and myself. And I just totally forgot about her. And so I snapped this picture and there's no head. It's just eyebrows up. Right. And so her first thought is just you completely screwed this whole thing up, right?
That's
the sun's gone down now.
Right, yeah.
The scene, the mood is now gone. And I didn't crop it. That's all I had, right? That was the picture.
Yeah.
And of course I still had to post it because it's a gorgeous picture. It just didn't have all of her in it. And so anyway, so that kind of started this trend. And now every time we go somewhere or do something, we have to get one of those photos. Sure. And she still smiles in every damn one. And
Even though you can't see from here.
I'm not cropping them, right? That was just, funny. Yeah, that was last week. So I'm not cropping that. That's the entire photo right there. And she is cheesing so big in that photo, and you can't even see it. Now at least I do try to get one photo with her entirely in it.
Yeah.
But the ones, there is no, I just cropped this out and there's the same version. No, it's not there. And so that's kind of how that started. So now it's got to the point now when we go to, different trade shows and things, we do the same photo with other people. Sure. Tim Evans loves to cut my head off in some of the pictures and do the exact opposite. So it's been great.
I've enjoyed every one of them I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know the backstory. Yeah. It was just a cool, it's kind of a cool, cute little thing that you guys do. Mm-hmm. And it was just, so I smile every time I see it. Yeah. But after hearing that story, my cheeks hurt.
Yeah. It was great because it was so organically that it happened and just complete accident.
Sure.
And it's just been great. We enjoy doing it now. We look for something to do it in front of.
A good sport,
Yeah, exactly. She's a great sport. You have to be to put up with me, and she'll tell me, she'll say, like I said, I need my husband,
sure.
And we try to have that, that relationship to where, I will stop joking when I need to. I'll be the stern one in the parenting when I need to be, even though I like to joke around and cut up. One of the guys that work with me, he said he's a younger guy. He's actually, I think he might be the youngest guy that works for me. Well, that's not true now. He's 28, 29. Okay. He's on the younger side. I have a couple a little bit younger that do prep work for me now and wash cars. But he used to say he's got 5 kids though. And he used to say that what he loves is when he comes to work, he can kind of be a kid in a way.
Sure.
You know, like he doesn't have to be that dad, that authoritarian figure. He can just be himself. You know, and he enjoys it. And that's one of the things like at work, like we have a very fun environment. You know, my joking between Vanessa and I and everyone else. And, you know, and because we have that the personal life outside of work, which none of them do, right? Because, you know, they go home and that's when they're with their significant others. So we have to try to be careful that we don't let any, you know, again, like I say, we don't fight, but of course we have arguments and disagreements. Thank you. You know, and it's funny because they pick up on it so quick. Oh, mom and dad are fighting today, you know, and it's never a fight, you know. And I tell I don't ever yell. That's at my kids. That's at my wife. That's not me. You know, my tick, if you will, is I'm quiet. When I don't say a word and I'm completely quiet, that's when I'm most upset. And I've told this to Vanessa, which is kind of the opposite. She wants to talk everything out, and I'm like, I don't. And it's not. My reasoning is just because I'm very quick sometimes with my words, and I don't want to say something to anybody.
Offensive
that they're going to be able to remember, right? So I would rather just be quiet, let me get over it. It might take an hour, it might take a day, and then I'm good, right? And that's just how I process things.
Yeah, so I'm very similar. I need the time to process it. And then for people that want to talk, it has its challenges because it's like, you know, they're just saying so much at such a fast rate. It's like, nope, I don't need to say anything. I just need to keep, because, you know, a lot of times you're better off, you know, because you can't unsay it.
Sure, exactly right. So especially to someone you love.
Exactly.
Because they're going to remember it, you know? I mean, like it's one thing to a team member. Hopefully they get over it. But if they ever do, whatever. But we share an office, like everything, right? We drive in half the time to work together. Like we are around each other 24 hours a day. So we just have to, you know, we have our own way of how we kind of handle that. And when there is tension or when there's a disagreement, how we navigate through it. But I mean, I think we do very well at that, you know, and it hasn't never been an issue for us.
That's cool.
So, you know, as far as that goes, I mean, that's been great, you know, and then my two little ones come into work and they love picking up, you know, the garbage on the floor and the team loves it because they don't have to. And that's been great. And they know all about vinyl and more so than I think some installers sometimes, but you know, they've been great. They love everything about it. And my daughter loves crafting.
Yeah.
And so she loves to pick up all the little pieces still in backing paper and save them. And it's like, oh my goodness, every time she turns around, I want to throw half of them away because there's so much. You know, she rolls them up and takes them home and she'll save like toilet paper cores and paper and wrap them and make pen holders with them.
See what I mean? Like that creative outlet. Sometimes you just don't know where it's going to come from.
You know what I mean? She loves that stuff.
It's cool.
You know, my wife is a big crafty person too, but man, I think my daughter for being 7 just takes it to a new level, you know?
Sometimes it's just being allowed to, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that maybe that they weren't allowed to as a kid or they weren't allowed to explore that space. You know what I mean? And I can remember being a kid and like there was this whole stigma around rock and roll, right? Like you couldn't rock out, you know, and it was like made me want to do it more. That's all I could think about. Like, you know, but you know, it makes it challenging when you don't have those finding your creative outlets. You know, it's you start to get to these real specific spaces where it's like safe, where you know you find this safe place where you can, you know, be creative, where it's like, you know, not affecting anybody else in a negative way or whatever. You know, it's just it's challenging. It's not art. Yeah, like I said earlier, I've been on this art thing for a while, just trying to something as simple as like knowing when an art piece is done. So, you know, you mentioned art, and it's kind of weird. So, my wife, I've never been into art, right? I've appreciated it, but I've never been like the art person. So we started this many years ago, actually not long after we got married, probably, where when we go places, we try to buy local art. And I don't typically buy like G Clay's reproduction. Like I want an original, a real painted piece. Yeah. Right. And so like we have them from Charleston, from Savannah. We just bought one in Nashville or in Pigeon Forge. Right? We went there before Nashville last week. Bought some from there. Like all the places that we travel, we've either had artwork commissioned or we've bought at galleries. And so again, I've never been into it, but like I appreciate it. Yeah. You know, and it's always something that either means something to one of us or is of a place that we liked or something like that. And so now at this point, we've probably got, I don't know,
12 paintings around our house, you know, of different places we visited or things like that, or just maybe an artist that we like, like in the mountains at North Carolina, Nashville, or wherever the case is, just things that mean something to us, you know? And so, you know, like you said, like, and it's, you can even kind of look through what we've got and see maybe not necessarily how our tastes have changed through even this short period of time, but the things that we have liked or gravitated more in that period of time. And I think it's the same with, you know, if you do design work and you're in a wrap shop, and, you know, artists have, or designers a lot of times have like a signature look that they do.
A style.
Yeah. And you can go back and look how that's changed if they've been with you or you followed them for years, how it's changed in that time frame. And even as rappers, how, you know, we used to do things and how we do things now, and in business, everything, right? Like the evolution of everything that we do in personal life, business, even family. You know, my daughter, again, you know, I've talked about her a lot, both my kids, but my daughter was 5 years old. We were in line at a McDonald's, which they will tell you they don't get fast food from me. Like if I say it, they like celebrate and cheer. I mean, it's like two times a year I, you know, now sometimes if they're with someone else, it's a different case, but not when they're with Vanessa and I. We were at a McDonald's drive-thru. We were on a trip somewhere. And as I'm going through the drive-thru, the guy at the that's getting my money there is not in the window. He's standing outside at this McDonald's. Okay. And he's talking to me about a wrap. And again, I'm in another town, whatever. Point being is he's asking about a wrap. I talk to him for a minute, then I go to the next window. And my daughter goes, "Daddy, why didn't you give him a business card?" And I'm like, shit, you're right. Like, it didn't even hit me. She's 5 and she already knows this.
Yeah,
you know?
She picks up on it.
Exactly. But that evolution, like, of just being around us and where she's kind of got to, you know, from observing things in her environment, you know. My son's very similar in the things that he likes and the things that he has learned and picked up on and stuff. And to think, you know, as this industry evolves through the years, how many, I mean, you're starting to get it now, second generation.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, there's been second and maybe even third in the sign side of things.
Yeah.
But in the wrap side of things, like, you're just kind of now getting to some of those second generation people, and how much this industry will evolve as we're getting those get further
15
along.
years.
Exactly. When you're starting to get a lot more of those, and then even the third generation. And, you know, and to kind of, you know, go off on that, you know, we have, you know, I don't know when this is going to go out, but next week we have Print United, and we have UASG. And one of the things that UASG is doing is they're trying to bring together some of these second generation people. There's a Trace had sent out, Trace is the president of UASG. He had sent out an email to 3M preferred people and everyone part of the organization. Yeah,
I've seen it. I think they're doing like a maybe like
golf tournament.
Golf tournament.
That's right. Like a little golf fun round. But and Ward Schneider is one of the people organizing that. And it's just getting together these multi-generational.
Yeah, I think it's their kids, right?
That's right.
Yeah, their kids are kind of.
That's right. That are maybe in the business or maybe not part of the business.
And I say kids, I mean they're
adults.
Yeah, they're adults. Yeah.
But being, you know, as like a mixer and getting people involved.
It's cool.
And you're just, you know, again, you're seeing that just now, like, you know, to kind of bring this full circle with bowling, it's the same way, right? I was third generation. My kids are fourth generation in this. You know, we're going on 70 years this year in the bowling business. And so, like,
that's crazy.
Seeing how many of those things, like, I can remember as a child going to these meetings with my grandfather and seeing, you know, being third generation at that time, which would have been in the early 2000s and late 90s. You know, and just now getting to that in our industry, and just seeing that evolution that's going to happen, and, you know, and it's hardly even started, and where it's going to go. I think it's going to just accelerate much more, because now, as opposed to being new for everybody, you've got this group of now people that are getting to the age where this isn't new to them. This is what they know,
right?
You know, and how much more quickly it will advance when you start bringing in all of these new ideas from people that are not new to the industry, right? Because they've been around it and they know these things.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because whenever I'm training, I always ask, like, hey, how did you come into the industry? Like, what was and dude, it's all over the place.
Sure.
I mean, it's wild. I just did a training. We were in Indy, and there was a nutritionist there. And I was like, "You were a nutritionist?" And he's like, "Yeah." Yeah, I was in nutrition, and he was like, it's super competitive in that space, and I like cars. I just kind of wanted to get away.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I've spent so much time and energy on that, and I'm just interested in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, that's,
Sure.
I mean, he's got a college degree for, nutrition and personal training, and he's just, decided to. But you've mentioned it a couple times since we've been talking, the whole continue education and even like, you've mentioned a couple of different coaches that you work for or work with, excuse me. So it's pretty important to you.
Sure. I mean, I
even some of the clubs and organizations that you're a part of. I mean, there's a education portion to that, and giving back and serving, I think, kind of runs parallel with that.
Yeah. I mean, I try to help out the industry as much as I can. It's been a great industry to me, and hoping that it will be to others as well, including my kids, if that's the route that they choose to take. And I think part of that is, educating those that maybe are newer or whatever the case is, into, mistakes that we made and I made, and making sure that hopefully they don't make the same, or maybe if they do, they make it and can get out of it quicker.
Sure.
Right. Because if we want this to succeed, because, part of the, I guess, the problem and the good and the bad is that it does have a very low cost of entry.
Yeah.
To get into this business.
Relatively low. Yeah.
Relatively low.
Yeah.
Right. Compared to a lot of things.
Sure.
That maybe do the same profit.
Yeah.
Right. And because, I'm in a lot of different industries, and thinking back at profit margins and what we do in other industries with such a much higher cost of entry compared to this.
I was just sitting here thinking about, this is my ADD or ADHD or whatever. I do. You were just saying that a minute ago, or you were saying something a minute ago, and in my head, all I could think about was the machine that picks the ball up and brings the ball back.
Sure.
Right.
Ball return.
Yeah. And then like it's in some cases, right. Is it under? I don't know. I feel like it runs parallel in between the lanes. Is that right?
It runs underneath the lanes.
Underneath the lanes.
Yes. Okay. Unless you get really old.
Okay.
Like 60 years old, then it runs on top.
But thinking about that, like, and then ever so often you got to redo the floors.
It depends if they're wood or synthetic, but yes.
Oh, okay. Yep. I see. I didn't even know that. Yep. But I assume in my head, I'm thinking like old gym floors.
That's right.
They're wooden with, yep. And then all those components in the back that pick up the pin. Like there's a lot of shit involved with a bowling alley.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's not, like it sounds easy. Like, hey, have some shoes, have some balls, and
extremely expensive to get into it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like,
and that was to your point. That's
sure.
Right. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, like if you were to put in one bowling lane, for equipment, lane, ball return, everything, just for one lane, you'd probably be looking at $180,000.
That's wild.
For one lane.
And you go to some of these places.
That's not the building.
Like 15 lanes.
We have 32.
Jeez.
That's right. So that's not the building. That's like your equipment, your bowling, your machine in the back, your ball return, all your pit motors, your lane.
How many balls do you have?
Oh, I don't know. I got 2. Sorry.
Like 2 you bowl with? Like 2 that you really like using? Is that what you...
Let's just get off that subject. All right. So
I just imagine you saying that because it's 30 lanes. So
right, 32 lanes.
So you got to have at least that many balls.
Oh, you have a lot more than that.
You have to,
because if you have 4 or 5 people on one lane, but a lot of people bring their own leagues. But for open bowling, you would have, I don't know how many we have. Every lane has a rack behind it, and that rack will hold 10 bowling balls.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's a lot there.
Lot.
Yeah. And then you have different weights.
Sure.
6 pounds to 16 pounds and different, there's a lot to that. But, getting off balls, if we go back to wrapping, what were we talking about?
Just the cost of entry. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like in the education of the market, because it does have a lower cost of entry than a lot of things. You do get a lot of people in it that maybe don't have that as much experience, because don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money for someone to lose, but it's all relative.
Right.
Right. So if I can help in any way to make sure that the established shops aren't losing customers to someone maybe new because they don't understand all the nuances that go with it. So if I can help educate them, make sure they're pricing themselves right, make sure that they're doing a good job, because if there's 5 new shops in our town and they do a crappy job, then that gives all of us a bad name.
Sure.
And how can I would rather work together and all of us be successful than a bunch of crap work, undercharging everything else.
What's your go? Do you have a good one that you keep queued up? Like whenever I go into a training, like I always know like I'll have one in my back pocket that I'm ready to pull out like at any moment.
Just snatch them up?
Yeah, just get them.
No, not necessarily. No. I mean, it varies. It's funny because doing some of these, you can, when you walk in, I know you've seen this, you go into a room and you can look at the people and you can immediately tell almost before they talk or you talk who's engaged and who's not.
For sure.
Who's willing to listen.
Yep.
Who's already knows more than you do. And who is only there because someone is making them be there.
Sure.
Right. And so you kind of have to navigate through that and figure out on each of those different scenarios what works best.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily like to do it, but sometimes you have to call them out. Sometimes it's like, you don't want to pay attention. Come show me how to do this.
Right.
Right. Show me how you do this. And then we'll see if it's better than what I can do.
Sure.
And it's, you kind of navigate your way through that with all these different personalities. And so, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm here for a reason. Either your boss wanted you to come,
sure.
Or something, right? Or I'm, whatever the case is. But I want us all, at least at the very end of this, to understand that the goal is to be better than we were earlier, that we want to make sure that we set up good habits going forward. Hopefully once you get into this, you're going to learn that you never know everything. The way we wrap things now is not how we did 10 years ago, is not how we did 20 years ago. I mean, I am a student of it myself. Every time I go to a trade show or I go around installers, like I've gone to the same training classes multiple times, and I've already had a certification. Mm-hmm. I just want to learn again because I know that something is different now than it was before. It's been, every 5 years maybe. I mean, you can't put a timeline on it, but it seems like there's, some good information out there that has changed, in the way we do things, and not even just the way we do them, but as materials have been updated for the better, and there's new technology in those materials, and how to navigate around that, and how to make sure that with what we are able to produce now, that we're going to get great results, long-term results, because, our customers expect it and they come to us because, of the things that we post on social media and the way that we talk and all that. And I have to make sure that the job that we give is on par with the expectation that we have set ahead of time. And so, not only do I believe in providing continuing education for everyone, but one of our core values is continuing education, because again, we're all just students, myself included, and making sure that whenever something new comes out, a new tool comes out that makes our life easier, that we have the ability and we have the know-how to get it, to use it, not only to make it a better quality, but to do it faster. Sure. Because I don't want to just do it faster if it's not better. Right. I want to do it both. I want to do it faster, better every time. And so that's just it. Like the whole back to the competitiveness. If it used to take me, 45 minutes to lay one panel on a trailer, how do I get that down to 30 minutes and then to 25 minutes and then to 15 minutes? Because even if I'm a solo installer, I'm still competing against myself, right? And I want to make it better, because that's always kind of one of those deals, like when we talk with, and it happens on the round table, it happens other places where it's like, well, I'm a solo installer, this doesn't apply to me. It does, right? If you ever want to get past the solo installer and you want to make this a business, if that's your choice. If it's not, that's okay too.
You ever find that kind of mindset or that viewpoint makes it challenging when you have employees and you're working with some of those guys? I know that because a lot of times their mentality is they come in and it's just a job. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm punching in. I'm here to do my job, and I'm here to check out. And and you're I mean, I can just hear it in the way you're talking about it. Like your soul is saying, we got to get better. We got to do better. And
yeah, so you reach, and this is not just with the team. Like, even Vanessa, I think she gets it more now, but years ago she was like, when's enough enough? Sure. Right. Like what is the end goal? I was like, I don't know, but it's not there. Right. And that's part of it. And, and so when I hire, especially installers, more than anything installers, when I hire them before, and I've broken this mold like once, when I hired someone that wasn't new, but I refused to hire anyone with experience in installation. And, I broke that. Of course, it did not work out for me, bit me in the ass at the end, but when I hire someone, I want no experience. And I want that because I want to mold them how works best for our business. But I usually have this talk with them. And it's like at some point, this is in the interview process before they've ever been hired, there's going to be a point as an installer where you feel that you're going to go out and do this on your own because you're going to see what we charge the customer versus what you maybe got paid, right? But there's so many things to go into that. And so when you see that and you start to feel that way, I want you to come talk to me because there's going to be a point where you really feel like you're going to do it. And if you're good and I believe in you and I think that you would make a good owner, entrepreneur, whatever, I would like to be the first person to invest in you. And I would like to be your business partner, right? And because this way, again, about that whole, elevating the whole industry is I would love nothing more than to have one of my installers that want to go off on their own. And now we're business partners and I'm not competing against them at all.
I'd heard you say this a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, it hit me hard. I was like, dude, that is a badass way to look at that. Like,
right. Because
it's kind of cool. It's very incredible. Like, because it does separate you almost for a second. Like, hold on, wait a minute. No, you might be ready for this. It might be time. And I want to be part of it. Let me know so I can. It was just a really cool perspective. So,
it hasn't necessarily happened to that point yet. But it's still one of those things that the offer is always on the table.
Yeah.
And honestly, the kind of one time that it kind of did happen. And what I've found is they don't typically want to be my competition in my area.
Right.
It would the kind of that it's happened was someone moving away.
Right.
And they were like, "Hey, do you want to do this here?" Right. And I'm like, that would be difficult for me.
Sure.
Right. If you're going to stay within a couple hours of here, that's one thing, but it's hard for me to help you and to be a partner together when we're half a country apart.
Sure.
At that time, especially, this was going back 10 years ago, I wasn't ready for that.
Right.
I'd be much more inclined to do that move now because I'm just better. I know more about it and how things
you
work.
Got your process, procedures.
Exactly. It'd be much easier for me to do that move now.
Sure.
So that's the only time it's really even come up, really. But at the same time, it's like, they don't necessarily want to be my competition because I think a lot of them, we are very open at our business with everything, the goods, the bads, all of it. Right. Just naturally, it is difficult for me. And I think a lot of people, especially in business that way, to share the wins. I am not great at that, but Vanessa is. We're very much the yin and the yang part, right? Like I'm the dad that's upset with whatever, and she's the mother that says, "Oh, come here, he didn't mean it that way,"
Yeah.
But when we have great months, I share that. When we have bad months, I share that. And because of that, like they're very much aware of the things that maybe didn't go great, or of the reprints that we have, or the material we've wasted, or what the cost is to run our social media team, or what the advertising cost is, or the insurance. So we put up this pie chart at our end of the year meeting, and it'll be a pie chart with all the expenses the entire year, and has all the little slices of pie there. And then next to it, it says all the dollar amounts, but it doesn't say what they are, right? And so those that have been through this exercise with me at my shop, they'll get fairly close. But I show this and I say, okay, here's 15 slices of pie, and here's how much dollar amount each one of these is, and then percentage-wise how much they are. And I want you, and here's all 15 different names that go with those slices of pie. And I want you to put them next to what you think it is, right? Like that 60% of that pie, what do you think that is? And that little 2% slice of that pie right there, what do you think that is? And they almost always mess it up like big time. Again, the ones that have been with me for a while, they get it now.
Yeah.
But like the newer ones, oh, that 60% is how much money you made. Like, oh, hell no, right? That little 1% slice of the pie over there, that's what we made. This 60% is the payroll for all of you guys. And then the other 20% right there is the material for you guys. And then you got advertising, you got insurance, you got tax, all of the rest of it that goes together. And so like a lot of shops, and you hear them complain about losing installers and everything else. But like I feel like part of the reason we don't have that issue is because we are so transparent.
Sure. That
they understand that there's more to this.
Well, just that little technique, that little strategy, I mean, it draws a very clear picture of where the money's going.
Exactly. Right. And again, we're very open about those things.
When I was doing the, when I was doing the driving instructor thing, there was a guy that ran that program. His name was Chris Tompkins. very loud. I'm pretty sure he was from New York, maybe Buffalo or something, but very strong and very driven, great guy. He was a super leader. At the end of the night, he would go through what we made, what it cost, and pretty much open the floor up for anybody that wanted to talk about it. And at the time, I was like, whoa, what in the world is going on here? But there was no hidden agenda. It was like, if you want to rent the track, you want to build some race cars, you want to get some trail, here's our, our
Here's
cost.
a playbook.
Yep. Here's everything you need to know. Everybody good with that? And generally, when everybody left, it was like, yeah, I think we're good with that. That sounds good. Hey, thanks, Chris. I had a great night. And you just kind of move on. So, I mean, I get it. It's challenging being that transparent, right? Because you do become vulnerable. But I guess, if you've got good processes on the front end because you're vetting these, the people that you're bringing in, it's not like just a random person off the street. So, I mean, at some point, I'm sure that you're comfortable sharing that stuff, right?
Sure.
Like you're not just going to put that out there for anybody, but your team. I think it probably helps add to the culture.
And we typically, again, because we're hiring people with no experience, we're usually hiring based on their character. Do we think they're going to be a good fit with our culture? We're hiring on that, not their skill in wrapping or print production or designing. Like designer would be one of those people that we want them to know some background, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not great stick figure people. They got to have a little bit of capability in designing.
Sure.
They don't have to necessarily be designing wraps, but I need them to know what Photoshop is and Illustrator and how to navigate through that. But beyond that, most of the time we're hiring fairly new people to the industry or green, especially in our industry. If it's a salesperson, maybe some sales-ish experience, but probably not in our industry. Unless they bring like a book of clients with them or something. So, typically that's kind of our framework is to make sure we're hiring good people and then to find the right seat on the bus for that person.
Sure.
And then, sometimes like I was sharing with you earlier, we have someone that works with us now that was in sales a couple years ago and, mutual split, and he went a separate way and then he wanted to come back, which we get that a lot. People, sometimes when they leave for whatever reason, they move away, whatever the case is, they want to come back. We've had that 3 times this year. And so, and when they came back with this person I'm just talking about, like it was a totally different position because that sales position wasn't the right position for them.
Sure.
And now they're in a different position and, they've only been back with us for a few weeks now, but, again, it's just a different seat on the bus. Great person.
Right.
And just getting the right seat on the bus for him.
Yeah.
So
I like that. I think that's important because, I mean, if you're hiring based on who that, their qualities, right? Like you don't want to lose good people just because they're a bad fit in a position. So it's, and I guess that's something too that we haven't really talked about is like, you're big on that, like process, procedure, making sure that you, if somebody's going to step into a role with you, they pretty much know what they're getting themselves into.
That's right.
And has that, I mean, that's got to be a pretty big game changer for your business, or have you always been that way?
Sure. I mean, I guess the problem would be in the beginning, it was all in my head, like most of us.
Oh, okay.
And then getting that information from my head down to something, whether it's a Google Docs, something. And, it's a living document. It doesn't mean that what you're going to have down as everything is never going to be complete. At least in my head, it's never complete. And so
you're going in to make adjustments
all the time
as needed.
New equipment, right? Like we just got another set of printers and they're different from the old ones. So we had to do a whole new set of training documents on maintenance and printing. And
what'd you get?
We got the new Roland X piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we still have our old Okies, you know, and, so we've been big on solvent. We've done latex as well, but we're just solvent people. So, but I mean, going down that route of, making sure that everything's documented and I find holes in it, and it's kind of hard to find those holes until you have someone go through it.
Sure.
Right. And so that's part of again, we just hired this new person, but again, he's been with us, but just not in this position. So he's going through this, he's in print production and he's going through this print production process. Again, it's new since we got our new Rolands.
Sure.
And he's like, well, it doesn't show this or this. I'm like, you're right. Because again, I started with Roland. I knew a lot of this stuff and how to use VersaWorks and those programs. And then we shifted to Onyx for our RIP software. And, now we do use a little bit of both now. But, learning these things over again and figuring out all the steps I'm missing as someone goes through it. So as I said, it's a living document. It's never done. we try to make it so that as things evolve, as equipment, if we get new equipment, as we find a better, faster, stronger way, we update that. And, and even to this day, it's still a lot of it is in my head. And, trying to invest time and energy into getting it out of my head and on something. I was very big on creating content this year, not just for internal, but for external as well, for customer facing. And so, I think,
which I've seen some of it, it's pretty good.
I mean, even just on the personal side,
it's fun.
That's separate content. That's Facebook content. But even beyond that, I've made 215 videos that I recorded. It's just me standing in front of a screen. Some of it for internal, some of it for customer facing, and just answering questions that customers ask. How long does a wrap last? What kind of material do you use? Can I wash it? Every question that a customer has asked me. So what we did was I went to everybody and I said, I want 10 questions that you've been asked. And I compiled that list. And then I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me 100 questions that someone would ask, a wrap shop business.
I think I've seen some of those videos.
You probably
too,
have. There's some that's been posted.
Yeah. I've seen on stories and stuff.
Exactly. There's probably some of those.
Ask Chris a question of some sort.
And I don't look at my own social media, so I'm sure there's been some up there. And so we compiled, and we ended up with, again, probably close to 200 questions overall, and took all of those. And even if it's the same question reframed and rephrased because of how a customer might ask it, I want a video on every one of those. So then not only is it great for social medias and YouTube and everything else, but where do you trim a transit van if you're going to do a cut and drop on the channel? I make a video on it, right? I can send it to a customer. I can send it on Loom, and then I know they've watched it, right? And so then at the same time, it's great for education for internal. It's great for education of our team. It's great for education of our customers. It's great content. It's great for social media. For SEO, because if you think about it, if you're a customer, one of the problems that every business owner kind of has is we phrase everything the way we would in the industry,
right?
But that's not how a customer sees it. And so
a cut and drop to us means one thing.
Correct.
To a customer, it means nothing.
Correct. And so in making sure that even on the meta tags and things on the video, photos and the videos and everything else, that we're phrasing it the way a customer would, so that when they Google how long does a wrap last or whatever the case is, that can help populate as a video in that geolocation and help with our SEO side.
Interesting.
And then, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff that keeps me up at 3 a.m. and trying to figure out how we can be successful in every avenue. I've said this before, is I want to be better than my competition in every single way, every way. And we've cold called competition, whatever. If they answer the phone in 6 rings, I want to answer it in 5. If they get back with you in an hour with a quote, I want to get back to you in 30 minutes. Every way. There's not a single way that I don't want to be better than all of my competition. And it's the competitiveness.
Yeah, it's funny though, because you also have a collaboration part of you as well.
Yeah. And I work with them all, right? That's part of it. But
it's interesting. It's the dynamic is
sure. But because of that, what has worked out to is most of my competition sends me their jobs now.
Sure.
Right. Because they have maybe not surrendered, but because again, we work together,
right?
But they've realized, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them is okay, I would rather work together with them and we're going to both make money on this job, right, than not. And I've gone to shops an hour away that undercut me by half, and I still got the job. And I drove down there and I said, look, man, I've never met you, right? We were coming back from vacation. Vanessa will tell you the story. We were coming back from vacation. My customer called me and said, hey, this guy down the street, he's going to wrap the trailer for half as much as you're going to wrap it for. I'm still going to go with you, though. And I said, well, send me their quote. And he sends it to me. And I was so upset, not that I got the job, that this guy was leaving so much money on the table because he wasn't incorporating all of what goes into that job, that I deviated my route home and stopped at his shop. And I had never met him before. And I went in there and I introduced myself and I said, look, man, I was I received this quote, again, I guess you have to be careful with, alluding on pricing, colluding. I was you're leaving a lot on the table. Are you calculating all these things that go into this, right? Let's work together. When you get these big jobs like this, because it was a 48-foot trailer or something. When you get these big jobs like this, I would rather you call me and let's work together on this than to just underprice. Because I said, you would have been in trouble at this price.
Yeah, you'd have been underwater.
Absolutely. And so like that type of thing, like I've got several shops that I work with. They might do their 1s and 2 wraps, but when they get a fleet of 20, 30 vehicles,
They're calling you.
They're calling me.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take them all year to do those. They only do 1 a month.
Well, and it sounds like it consistently makes everybody better.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So like
you're
I want to be
building each
better,
other.
but
Right.
that's because I want to be the go-to source for those things.
Sure.
And part of that, I want to bring them up with me. I'm not trying to knock them down.
Right.
Right. I just want to be a step ahead of them.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So if they're going to charge 3, I'm going to charge 3,500.
Sure.
They're going to charge 4, I'm going to charge 40. I want everyone to work together.
Sure.
And get better.
Yeah. So whereas the other side, you know, if when you're racing towards the bottom,
Right.
not good for anybody.
Exactly.
We're all screwed, right?
Exactly.
Like, so it's like, yeah, you're creating that path upwards. I mean, what more? You know?
And part of that is I increase my prices and I increase things. I want them to know what I'm charging.
Sure.
And to come up with me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want them to stay where they're at. I want them to make more money too.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, a lot of that, same thing with, I want to be better in every way, but that's because I want them to also push harder. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I like to think that they need me in some of these markets to push the limits on what we can charge and what we can do. Again, we're not doing these extremely custom Lamborghinis and all this stuff. Like we're doing commercial wraps. That's our bread and butter day in and day out. And even not necessarily on design, but like what we can accomplish, how fast we can do it, how good the job can look. And I want them to push for that too, because it makes us all in our area, in our industry better. I don't want to do a job, you know, where the other places undercut me and then their job looks like crap and then the customer no longer wants to do a wrap.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I want to be their partner from their first vehicle to their 100th vehicle.
Yeah, we've seen it for years on the install side. It's not uncommon to bring in a contractor.
Sure.
Right? Like, so we collaborate a lot. Now, I'll say that, and it can also get cutthroat. Like it's it's a dangerous give and take, right? Because you're opening up the door. Both of you really are opening up the opportunity for it to be it could go not in a desirable way. Mm-hmm. But as I'm watching like these other companies do it, I'm like, man, this is kind of interesting. Like there's some real growth and some really cool things happening. That's like, it's nice to see.
Sure.
You know what I mean? it doesn't have to be bad or cutthroat or.
I mean, even if you go back and think about like install only pricing, right? Years ago, people were wanting $1, $2 a square foot.
Right.
And now it's $4 and $5 a square foot, right? Because again, costs have gone up, things have changed. Sure. You know, you're going to see a lot more of that in the future, you know, with all the different things going on with economies and just pricing in general. Sure. And, you know, it's good in a way to see that the industry is evolving and understanding that even if it is install only, there's costs that go with that.
For
you
sure.
know, and my cost having a full-fledged shop is not the same as a solo installer that works out of his van.
That's right.
You know, and in sometimes we lose jobs to that. I can't compete with that. Right. I've got overhead. If my guys aren't in my shop working and they're doing an outside install for somebody else, I still have overhead.
Yep.
They don't have as much overhead, or it's very minimal,
Yeah.
you know. But I think it's better for everybody. And what I'd like to see, of course, is those solo installers still charging what they should be charging, and then being able to then get a building if they want a building,
right.
or get something if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like if they don't and they want to stay that and they're happy with that, go for it. Sure. You know. But I think there's a lot of ways that the industry is heading that's in the right direction. In a lot of education of the marketplace, not just of the installers and the people that work there, and them learning that, you know, wrapping is an art and a craft to it, and that not everyone does it well. I mean, we all make mistakes, us included, you know, and do we stand by our work and try to fix it as best we can? Yes. Are we going to have a 500 5-star Google reviews? No. We're going to piss off someone along the way. You know, sometimes it is our fault. Sometimes it's not. You know, when you deal with people every day, you deal with all these personalities, and, you know, it is what it is. I had a bad review one time. It wasn't even a customer. I parked at a Walgreens. I told you earlier that my foot and leg doesn't work. Yeah. I wear a brace. I walked into Walgreens, and someone evidently didn't think I limp enough. And I had a handicap sticker hanging up in my truck, but it's a lifted truck,
sure.
You know, and they left me a 1-star review because I was parked in handicap, right? And I'm like, perfect, right? Like, I mean, it's one of those stupid ass things. It's like, you know, I guess I didn't limp enough for him, you know, but you know, it's you deal with all kinds of people.
Sure.
Most of them are good. You know, it's the few that are bad that create issues for everything we do.
So the wrap is a lot of work.
Sure.
It's tough. It's competitive. You know, obviously you like the competition side a little bit, but I mean, you've got other stuff going on. Like I came down and did the PDAA event with you. It was great.
Yep.
Enjoyed the hell out of it. It was a really good time. Recently just became a member of the UASG, right? So,
well, I've been a member.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet,
Okay.
me.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
But some of that was, you know, I'm watching what you're doing, and I'm hearing people talk about how good of an opportunity it is, and you sit on the board, correct?
That's right.
Yep. So, I just wonder, you know, when you talk about the future and looking towards the future, do you see yourself staying with this? I mean, obviously you have a business.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that's why I don't say donate, but I involve myself in so much of it.
Right.
You know, I do very much enjoy it. I like all aspects of it. You know, I like from everything from the sales and the design side to the business side to even helping serve. I mean, I'm on a few different boards and organizations within the industry, and giving back as much as I can to those. And it can be difficult sometimes because, you know, a lot of these different organizations, I don't want to say they're competitors because I don't feel that they are, but they're in kind of the same space.
Sure.
Right. But, you know, with that said is like, you know, I give all of them my all, and I don't serve the same role in all of them. Right. And each one kind of has its own nuances and things that we do. And making sure that, you know, I represent everybody and every company that I work with the same, right? I give all of them my all, right? And again, it's in different ways, you know, in different perspectives and different, you know, what my requirements are for each of them is different. But again, in the end, it's just growing the industry. That's what I want to do. That's my goal. That's what I enjoy giving back to the industry that's given me a lot. And so, yes, I mean, like, you know, the UASG is part of it. PDAA, I help with that some as well. But there's a lot of those, you know, like the Pain is Dead, the Masters of Branding, both of those groups as well are great, incredible groups in our industry that help give back to the industry as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things like that, like the different manufacturers. I work with a lot of them.
Because you have just about every manufacturer certification,
all the major
right?
ones,
yeah,
all of them.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And so, you know, again, it kind of goes back to the education part is wanting to learn from the manufacturers. And I get it. Some people don't agree with the certification. It's just a piece of paper on a wall. That's fine. Like I go to the class every time. I don't ever show up for the certification without taking the class. My goal is not the certification. My goal is to go there and learn as much as I possibly can from the people that make the films, because who is the better one to kind of tell me about that film? Sure. The certification is just like to my proof that I went through it, right? I don't tout it. None of that stuff. I mean, it's on our walls at our shop. But I mean, like that's it for me. Like, I mean, I get it's on some social medias and things like that because it gives us, you know, that we are the source in our area for that, whatever.
Right.
But, you know, even along with that, like we don't deviate from the major manufacturers. We don't offer none of these subpar-ish films, if you will, at our place, right? Because I want to be able to stand by the work that I do. Sure. And so because of that, we are very selective on even what we do. When people bring us outside vinyl to put on things, that we just stay away from it.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, how do you manage that? Because a lot of times with color change... we just don't do it. Yeah. I mean, we have enough work. We just stay away from it. You know, we do a color change a week or so. We don't kill ourselves with color change. It's not our bread and butter. But, you know, we do get a lot of calls on these unique colors that people see on TikTok and everything else. Yeah. And we just steer clear. We, it's a nice color. Here's the closest we offer, you know, and we just stick in that lane and that's what we do, you know, and I would probably say the couple times we've ever varied off that has always been the issues, you know, like, I mean, that's always when something happens is when you don't stay the course and you leave what you know and you try to do something you shouldn't. And I get the pushing the envelope thing, but
I think it depends on what it is. Like pushing the envelope with the right material versus pushing the envelope
Sure.
with a subpar material is not
Especially
the same.
if you know it going into it. Like
Sure.
if you already know that's a calendared film, it's decorative. Like you know what the results are going to be. Like
Exactly.
you don't have you're not sitting around wondering like, oh, maybe this will work. No.
Yeah, not that maybe this time it'll work.
No,
it never does.
yeah.
It never works out. And those are always those customers that they say they understand.
Sure.
And they never do.
Yeah.
Right. So we just try to steer clear of that. It's just not something we do. We stick with what we know. Through the years, we've niched down more and more and more. Because like most people, you don't want to turn away $1 in the beginning.
Right.
You do everything you possibly can. And now we've just got to the point where like signage and things like that. We pretty much steer clear of all that. We do some minimal like corrugated plastic signs for our existing customers, things like that, maybe some banners, but that's about it. Like we stay clear of the rest of it.
Interesting thinking about like you're a wrap shop. Mm-hmm. That's what you are.
Right.
At the end of the day, you're a wrap shop. You're not a sign shop.
Nope.
You're not detailing cars. You're a wrap shop. That's what
right.
you do.
Yep.
It's pretty cool because looking back, like that hasn't always been the case for
Most shops.
Most shops have a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just in the you look at like Mole, right? Obviously he's doing buses and trailers,
Mm-hmm.
like that's his bread and butter. Mm-hmm. But he's a wrap shop,
Sure.
right? Like he's wrapping those things. So he's got a specific thing, and around us, a lot of it's racing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can find those specific places, but to have places that are just like, no, I'm just a wrap shop. I'm out here doing.
But it goes back to working with other people because we have great partnerships with sign shops.
Sure. Okay.
I send them my signs, they send me their reps.
Yeah.
It's all part of it. And even when I was talking earlier about like the competition part of it and being better, that's not necessarily, yes, it's primarily focused around wraps and sign shops that offer wraps, but also I learn a ton from other industries, right? Because I'm in some and just because I enjoy the education side of things.
Sure. Just like we were talking about earlier with the CNC machines. And
Exactly.
Stuff, right?
Like, I appreciate the learning side of things.
Yeah.
And I love to go to other industry conventions and trade shows and learning and stuff. And what can I bring back to this?
Sure.
How can we be, because again, we are new as an industry.
Sure. Take what they're doing and implement it over here.
Absolutely.
And what we're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because there's a lot of, older industries that have been around and have learned and all those things. And how can we adopt those and get them to be part of our shop and our culture and our industry and everything else? Because it helps move the industry faster, or at least ourselves. If other people don't want to do it or implement it or believe in it, that's fine.
I will say this: our shows and our when the group gets together, it's a lot more interesting. Me and Josh been to a couple other shows where there's like machining shows and stuff. They're a little dry.
I can see that.
Not as exciting.
I can see that. Well, we were at
camaraderie's not there.
Indy or something, I think it was. And Vanessa and I were walking from the hotel to the convention center. And she said, "Man, this is a big convention center. Which door is it?" I said, "That's easy." She said, "How do you know?" I said, "It's the one with all the scooters piled up outside." And she was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I promise you,
100%.
that door with all those scooters piled up outside is the entrance for the wrap part. I guarantee you that's where it's at." And we're walking, and sure as hell, there they all are, right?
Yep.
100 scooters sitting right outside that door.
Those guys were ready.
Oh my goodness, and so it's like, yes, I mean, like I again, being in other industries and going to other conventions, we are the funnest.
Sure.
I mean, I even go to the family entertainment one. It's called IAPA. It's typically in Florida or Vegas every year, and it's a very large convention, like the 7th or 8th, I think, largest overall conventions of any of them, much larger than anything in our industry. And they're family entertainment centers. There's from amusement parks to everything you can imagine there, and we're funner. Like 100%, we are funner all day long.
Yeah.
They're in the industry of fun, but we're funner.
Does that run parallel with the bowling thing? Is that where that
That's
comes
right.
from?
That's part of
Okay.
it. Yeah. And I was also in a laser tag and roller skating industry many years ago. And so it kind of played in the FECs, the Family Entertainment Centers, kind of the play on that. They are now more bowling in them now, but 20 years ago, bowling was a small part of them.
Sure.
Bowling has its own trade shows that are separate from that as well.
Are they pretty good?
No.
No?
No, they're not. I mean, they're not great. Again, it's a lot of, just like rapping is a lot of newer people that historically has been, much older crowd.
Sure.
Much more different feel to them. It's changed some.
Right.
Right. As industries have combined and you've been getting
Get lot of that crossover.
Yeah, in bowling is no longer what it used to be. It used to be like the old, like your fathers and they're going bowling and they're in a league and they're, whatever. Now it's not. It's more of like a fun activity. No one wants to sign up for a commitment of a league and they're bowling 32 weeks a year. They want the fun part of it.
What about the competition side? Like when they do like the tournaments and stuff, that's got to be pretty cool, right?
It is. I mean, like if you don't mind, there's different levels of that now. But I mean, that's if you're competitive, that's great. You can travel and do it, and
imagine like the after parties for those guys got to be pretty cool. Those guys getting having a good time.
I still don't know if they're as good as rappers, but they hold their own.
We just went to a disc golf competition over the weekend, and I was really impressed, man. It was cool. It was a very cool experience.
It's different. I've always said that bowling is not a sport because the drunker you get, the better you get, and so that's kind of you got that to deal with too. There's but even like if you go way back and like if you talk about bowling and you used to watch it on TV at all, and you'd see when they had the Pro Bowling Tour, the PBA on TV. You couldn't talk. It's like golf. Quiet. Now they're cheering, they're yelling, they're screaming, and it's just totally different environment, and it's made it more fun because that's what people see now. I mean, it's more of a fun thing, and it's geared more towards a younger audience. And so it's evolved a ton in the last 20, 25 years. Like it's night and day difference.
It's interesting because you compared it to golf. So golf has got kind of they've gotten a little like live versus, PGA. And so like, is there similar? They got
much more drastic, right? Really? But you were talking.
I'm saying, is there traditionalist and?
Well, that's what I mean. Like you're talking two different things that are going on simultaneously. Okay. Bowling hasn't been that way.
I gotcha.
It's evolved. There's not two different ones like that. It's just kind of evolved.
Sure.
And just changed through the years. Like the biggest similarity is people still do bowl some leagues, but at the same time, it's not like it used to be. It's just, it's a different feel. It's not as competitive. It's more about the fun side of things.
I gotcha.
You do have the competitive leagues in there and competitive people, right? Competitive tournaments, but there is a fun aspect to it that maybe didn't used to be there as strongly. So it's just different, and
it's unfortunate because I love doing the podcast, by the way. Like I enjoy this, right? But I literally could sit here and talk to you 2 hours about bowling. I know I could without a shadow of a doubt, like, because it's so interesting, man. Like, I don't know. When I listened to you talk about it, it was like, I'm very curious person as well. But things that people get into, you know what I mean? Like we're lucky enough. We got into rapping, we got into graphics, right? And there's some similarities there that like with some instant parallels we know, right? Like you talking about the scooters, like I know that. I've been there, I've seen that, I know what that's like. But there's also like certain things, like when I hear like just how you talk about it, the sport, and like you're into it, and that's cool. It's kind of, I don't know, I think it's cool that when you see those things, like, Josh I told you earlier, he's into percussion, and like he takes that serious, like on a whole nother level. And when he starts nerding out,
like Step Brothers?
Oh no, way
beyond the Step Brothers,
way beyond.
Oh wow,
you can't even imagine. It's wild.
Nice,
but it to the point where it's like I'm not even sure if I'm listening right. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, maybe my ears aren't working right. So I don't know. But it's just cool. It's
everyone has their thing. Right. Like they have the thing that occupies them, that is a release of whatever their daily grind is. I guess at one time it was probably more bowling for me on the competitive side of things. For me, I guess a lot of it now is business in general and different ones. And again, I've said this several times, but I mean, I'm in a lot of different industries, and I've got into them all for different reasons. But I enjoy the sport of it, and if you will, right? Like the different nuances, the competitiveness, the challenges. They've not all been successful. I mean, there's been plenty of things that I've messed up or I shouldn't have done or whatever that I've learned about later, or, looking back at it and been like, I totally screwed that up, or I totally wasn't ready for that. But I guess that's kind of lately has been more of my my outlet, as figuring out kind of like what's next, or how do I want to evolve, or what do I want to do. Because I've also learned that even in my rap shop, because that does get majority of my focus on the day to day, that a lot of the ideas and the things that I want to implement, like they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years out.
Yeah.
Because the team doesn't necessarily want to make changes as quickly as I'm doing them. They want to be able to get to a point and like, let's just cruise there for a minute.
Yeah.
Before we change it up again, you know, and so, you know, even with Vanessa, it's been the similar, you know, like I said, like, what is the end? What are we doing? You know, and it's like, I'm still so many years past where we're at in my own head, like what's next, you know, and part of that is making sure that everyone there understands not necessarily how we're going to get there every step of the way in detail, because I'm a very detailed person, but like, where are we going?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It sounds like some of these other things that you got going on, it's almost like it balances what you're doing.
They do. They overlap. Like one of the other industries I'm in is auto body and collision, you know, and
I just meant like the training and the sitting on the board and like, like those things. It seems like having those extra things going on helps you balance out, because you can, you're going to get all that stuff over there because you're going to go into a shop that, you know, there's no telling what, I don't know where you're going here, but you may walk in and be like, oh, well, this is easy. You just need a new printer, or you need an operating system, or you need an installer.
Yes, that's a lot of it. And that it's easy to kind of see from an outside lens, because a lot of us know issues that we have. But it's hard when you're stuck in it. Right. And it's much harder. You know, I say this, but of course there's issues at our own shop, and there's issues that.
But you fine tune that bow, you know, like you've worked on that thing pretty good.
We try, and then we find another hole, right? And then you plug it, and then you find another hole.
And they're probably pretty big.
Well,
they probably get bigger.
The holes get smaller, really, right? It's because, like in the beginning,
I just meant maybe more complicated to feel.
Right? Because they're not lower level fixes. They're much higher level that either cost more energy, more money, more time to maybe get them not fixed, but like better,
dialed in.
Exactly. Like we got them from here to here very quickly and efficiently by just doing this. But then the next step requires a lot more time and energy and devotion. And then it's like, what is it? It's the pinch worth the squeeze, right? Is it worthwhile devoting all this time, energy, and resources for the gain that I'm going to get out of it?
I'm going to have to uproot everything, and I'm only going to get this little gain.
Like, and they can, you know, my wife, especially, the team complained to me not complain, but they're like, you know, we just changed this. And I'm like, I know we did, but I already saw the holes in it before it ever happened. Like once we started doing it, I had already seen that this wasn't going to work. Now it is better than what we were at. But like, I can see the holes already. Like, and that's, you know, part of my wife called it my superpower is like, you know, being able to see something and dissect it long before an issue happened. Because I just played it out in my head and I knew that it wasn't going to work how I intended, or I knew it wasn't going to be as good as I had hoped, or whatever, for a multitude of reasons. So like that whole visionary side of it, like that's part of it is, you know, for me being able to watch something and dissect it into tiny little pieces that I can then implement. Right. And that's, you know, I feel that I'm pretty good at the training side and teaching side, because I can take these big issues and break them down into little bite-sized pieces that we can then take and work our way through. Right. You know, like just not the overall picture of it, but how do we take that monstrous task in front of us and break that down into something that we can
Dustin used to ask me, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Exactly.
Right? You got to get it broke down in this manageable little thing to where you can do.
You know, and I have those issues where I have it, let's say it doesn't have to be a problem. It could be like a something we're trying to implement, and I might get 90% of the way there. I might invest a week or two of my time, and I'm like, it ain't going to work, you know, like, but that's part of it, right? Like, you know, I figured it out before we even got to the end result that nope, that's not going to work, you know, and developing, you know, software, we've gone down the custom software route, you know, we've done different things like that. And we get all the way close to the end. I'm like, it just wasn't what I thought, or it's going to require so much more capital and time that it's not going to be worth what it saves me. You know, for that 5 seconds that I save to do this, it's just not worth the time and investment.
And that can be challenging dealing with that in your head, because it's like,
you know that you've devoted so much energy and resources to it. And it's
how do you stop at that point? You know what I mean?
Because you figure out, if you were to continue, how much more is it going to get from you? And it's better to just cut your losses and move on. You know, and it's the same way with a business. If you're in the business of doing something, you know, you're going to get to a point, hopefully not, but you might get to the point where you're like, you know what, it's better if I just cut my losses and roll on, right? And devote that time and energy to something else, that another idea, another thing, another place, another whatever. But I mean, that's hard, because a lot of times that's your baby, and that's what you've learned. my biggest but my biggest reason for not stepping out of the wrap industry is because that's my baby. Yeah. That's the one I've grown from nothing. It's not one that I've bought. It's not one that was in my family. It's not nothing else. So when I see the, stepping out of that industry, like I don't see that happening because I've raised her. Yeah. This is my little baby that I used to coddle and hold. And, now she's a big girl, and that's difficult. Yeah. It's difficult to see the problems with it. Yeah. It's difficult to course correct it. It's all of it. Yeah. I got no issues going over to another place and being like this, and this. We got to change this.
All that's wrong.
All of it. Right. Like it just happens. Vanessa tells me, she says I didn't ask for feedback, right? Like, and if she's doing something like social media, I said earlier that I don't follow my social media. That's because I don't want to give them feedback on it.
Sure.
I want them putting out content. I know they're putting out good content.
It is good content. I've seen it. I follow it on TikTok. I see it on Instagram. It's good stuff.
And so I see stuff when people like, man, I love that video, and then I'll go back and watch it. But as far as like following it day to day, I don't. Like I have a great social media team. We use a lot of virtual people in our business. We have 5 virtual team members, and we have a full-time in-house videographer, photographer person that works not just for my wrap shop but all my places and grabs content. And then I have another person that doesn't work in my office that's full-time social media person for me, and they take all the content from the different places and they create it, and they post it and do all that stuff. And so like, we've gone down that path because we wanted a little bit more control over our social media. Mm-hmm. We had an issue a while back where we were paying a company to do our social media posts. Whatever happened, we got slapped on the wrist for, I guess a post was made that Facebook didn't like. And so I guess they had requested the post come down. The social media company did not pull it down. They left it up. So then we got our hands slapped again. So now we could not do any boosting a post. We couldn't do any advertising a post. Our page would not even get recommended to anybody. It was complete. It was like the next lockdown before they shut your page down. And so when we tried to get that back by removing that social media company, they said, no, it's linked to your business ID page or your number. Even though we can see that someone else made that post on your behalf, they made it on your behalf. And so they wouldn't lift that ban. And so they said it could come down in a couple months. It could take up to a year. So we sat there for a year with minimal, almost no engagement, no matter what we put out, because they were basically blocking our page. Yeah. And so after long enough, we said, you know what, we're just going to start a new page. And that's what we did. So we still kind of co-post, but we've been trying to push people to our new page.
I gotcha.
Because of that, right? And so both pages, so if you follow either page, it still has the same content. Sure. We're just, all of our tags and everything, we're pushing people towards the new one, right? And so again, I just want them putting out content. I know it's going to be good content. Any content is better than no content.
Well, I think it's a good representation of y'all.
Sure.
Right? It's fun. It's kind of, quirky.
Quirky. It's cool.
Us. Yeah.
And that's the idea. Like, don't pretend to be someone that you're not on social media. Right. This is us. I said earlier about, some of the guys that they enjoy coming to the shop and being themselves, and not having to be stuck in that father figure or whatever the case is. Just be yourself. And we try to portray that on social media as best we can. Yeah. And we try to make it fun. We try to do some of that stuff, stay with some of the trends and things like that. Sure. And, and every once a week we'll have a sheet from our social media girl, and she'll say, I'd like to see these couple things this week. We typically film our content from a few weeks to a month in advance, and then it gets chopped up and whatever they're going to do with it. I said, I don't look at it every day. I don't even look at it unless someone's, hey man, I love that video, and I got to go back and see what it is, But they do a great job. Vanessa heads up the social media side. One of our executive assistant, she's virtual as well, and she helps basically approve all the posts and everything we do. And then if there's anything that's questioned, then Vanessa will answer that question. For me, I'm pretty much out of all the day to day. Yeah, I kind of help with the training side. I help troubleshoot issues, but the day to day stuff, I'm completely out of it. I'm there every day, and my office is there every day, but hopefully there's someone else there that can answer it without me. And that was, again, bringing in Vanessa back in the day. That was kind of part of it, is to cut me out of it so that we could grow processes and procedures that could replace me and her, right? So that we can do other things and go down other avenues that we would like to.
It sounds like you're getting closer.
Always closer,
Sure.
because sometimes I take a step or two back,
Sure.
and that's usually my fault. Because when I am there, that was the other thing is when I started getting out of the office more, doing different trainings and stuff, that helped because it got me out of my own way, and they
Sure.
had to either figure out how to troubleshoot it themselves, or they just had to make the decision that they already knew was the right one. When they come and ask me something, I try to ask them for at least 3 different solutions. The one that they'll probably go with, and then 2 more, and then we'll talk our way through them. Which one of those do you think is best? Why do you think it's the best? And go try it. And sometimes, even if in my head, I don't think it's going to work, but I know it's not going to mess things up too bad, I might let them try it. Right? Okay, then let me know how it works.
And
for
who
you.
knows? Maybe they rattle off something that's better than what you were thinking.
100%. And that's part of it, right? Is when I wrap something and I have a mistake on it, and it goes outside, I always tell them, I don't want you to fix any errors you find on my wrap, because I want to see them, because I might do this mirror different than I did the other mirror on the other side of that car. And I know what I did, right? And I want to see which way works better, or how I did that corner, how I did that bumper. And so if there's an issue, I don't want you to fix it. Let me know so I can go out and address it. But I want to be able to think back, how I did this versus that. Did one side stay and one side didn't? What did I do differently?
Right.
And so that's part of my learning, right? I want to learn on my own. I'm always, again, trying to get better and better. And, I try to let my team know that too. It's you're going to do things that aren't going to work, but hopefully you'll learn and you won't make those same mistakes again. I don't mind errors and mistakes and flaws. I just don't like it when we repeat them
Over and over
again. When we course correct and we're still having it, then what is the problem? Are we not listening? Are we not caring? What is the issue here? And so, people reprinting stuff, whatever the reason, I am good with that. I know that's part of it, right? Our material costs are minimal in our industry compared to everything else that goes with it. So if I have to reprint a panel, okay. But did you learn? Even better. We did an RV one time. It's probably one of the bigger mistakes we ever really made. Printed RV, salesperson sold it. I asked them to make sure that they had, printed out a version of it, and the customer approved it, and they said they did. Again, it was partially my fault in the beginning, because I knew with the color they were selecting, if you've done printing, you understand that sometimes certain colors appear differently in the sun. Exactly. And so I looked at the color, and I had already seen that this could pose an issue.
Sure.
And so I thought I had addressed it by saying, I want the customer to come drive here, print out these samples, make them look at it, make sure they approve it, all of this stuff. And they did. And we wrapped this whole RV. And at one point, even the salesperson said, that color doesn't quite look right. And I was like, yeah, but did you have the customer come down and look at it and approve it? And they were like, yes. And I said, well, then they're okay with it. Right? You did all that, right? Yes.
That's what they're expecting.
Right. So I understand that it maybe don't look like the screen, but we printed this out. They came and approved it. You said yes. He said, yeah, I did. Absolutely. So we wrapped this whole RV 42 foot long.
Oof.
And we get it outside, and he comes and picks it up, and he's like, I don't like the color. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't like the color? Right? And if you put on
late for that.
You put on sunglasses, it's perfect, right? If you take a picture of it, it's perfect. But viewing it without sunglasses, without a photo, it's too greenish looking.
Oof.
And so, and that was part of it. And then when I went back and I said, I thought you asked him if he approved it. He said, I did. And he said, when the customer came back inside after looking at the RV, he looked at the table and there was a piece of that vinyl lid on the table. He's like, if you'd have just made it that color, that would have been perfect. And I think that is that color. When you take that outside, it doesn't look like that. Right. And so come to find out,
fluorescence or
that's
something.
Right. And it was perfect inside under the fluorescence. You take it outside and it was too gray looking.
Natural light. Yeah.
Yep. But come to find out, when that salesperson had him sign off on it, he never took it outside. And again, I'm going to take some of the blame because I didn't specifically say, did you take this outside?
Sure.
Did he look at it outside in the sun? And he didn't, right? And so that's part of, maybe me not always explaining everything completely, but, it's just part of it. Like now we make sure we take it outside, that they look in the sunlight, not
Did you
just
have to eat it?
Oh yeah. But I mean, material cost is the lowest part of that, right? The labor of removal and putting it back
reinstallation.
and the entire time that is occupying my bays that I can't do other people's work. And so that's probably one of the larger jobs that we've ever messed up. It's probably a roll and a half, 2 rolls, whatever it was of material. Yeah. And that's fine, you know, like it's a big learning mistake, you know, and we move on past it, and, you know, and it's one of those things now. It's like, we're not going to do that again. You know, we make sure that that's not the case.
Right.
You know,
and you add that. I mean, it's an expensive little box to put on your checklist, but now it's there.
Now it's there.
Yeah.
But there could always be worse, right?
Oh, yeah.
It could be 50 vehicles.
Yeah.
I would rather have one RV than 50 vehicles.
50 vehicles, that's right.
And so, like, whatever it is, it could always be worse.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. So it's just one of those things, man. It's like, you know, you learn when you're in the industry all the things that can go wrong. You learn about the crappy people. You learn about the good people. You learn about all the ways that we can, you know, avoid as many issues as possible, you know, and just move on from there. Like, it's just one of those things.
You're getting it from all angles too. So it's like,
Sure.
that helps your perspective to be able to see it. It's pretty incredible, really. Like,
and when we go to other shops, it's like, I can see these mistakes coming. Mm-hmm. Guys, look, I know you're new, but you need to really get these sure. prints inspected and get the customers to look at them. You know, I understand they look good here, right? Or I understand that you don't think you need to clean this that good. Right. Or I understand that you need to do this, but you're going to. Like, you know, these are mistakes that are going to happen when you've done enough. You're going to get edges lifting if you don't post heat.
Yep.
Like, it's like one of the things that I see, and I'm sure you see it
all the time.
They don't want to do it. They post heat with a torch, whatever. Right. It's like, I get it. Yes. Majority of the time, that's probably enough, but it's not going to be. You're going to do more vehicles. You're going to get more things, and it's not going to work every time.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, different materials, you know, like going back to like learning all these different things, like, you know, certain materials, when they're a really low like initial contact, you know, to me, it's like even more important than the cleaning side.
For sure.
Right. Because
and post heating, really.
Absolutely. Both sides. Yeah. Right. But like, if you're used to not cleaning a vehicle as thorough as it should be, and you're using a more aggressive adhesive, it almost makes up for it.
Sure.
Right? It almost will stay down a little bit. Yeah. But you get something.
A little insurance there.
Exactly. It's like people with primer.
Sure.
Same idea, right? People prime stuff because it's like a crutch.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, you know, of course there's use cases for it, right?
Yeah.
But it's like
maybe a dab here, a dab there.
Right. You know,
but the guy that coats it on.
Exactly. The guy that gets the backpack sprayer.
Different conversation.
Buys it in a 55-gallon drum and it's just, you know, we're not the same, you know, right. And it's like, I would rather you learn a good technique, learn to do it right, you know, learn where to use it.
Yeah, because that same guy that's using the backpack sprayer, he's not removing that wrap.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely not.
He would set that thing on fire if he had to remove
those
one.
mosquito foggers, like the steel backpack sprayers, like we're going to load some primer in that bad boy and just coat the whole vehicle with it, you know? And I've done plenty of removals where I feel that's what they did.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's like, why?
They did. You can see the drip line down the side. You know
absolutely.
what it is.
Like, would you use a 6-inch roller on that? Like, Jesus. But, you know, you deal with it. I deal with it. And it's like, it all goes back to that education part. Like, why? Because you guys felt so unsure in your install techniques that you felt like you had to do this.
Yeah.
You know, like, just let's learn this. Let's hear about the way we should do it. And it's just crazy to me sometimes, some of the stuff that you see and some of the stuff that we've done. And it's mind blowing sometimes.
It's fun though.
I
enjoy it.
That's the best part. It's always different.
Part, yeah.
Right. Like that was part of some of the other things I've done. It's like they get so monotonous and like, other than playing with stickers all day, like it's always something different.
Yeah.
Different things. And
never know what you're going to see. It's pretty, like I said, it's pretty incredible. Do you know Brad Felty?
I do. Yeah, I do.
So we had Brad on the podcast, right?
Yeah. He does a lot of like IndyCar and stuff.
Yeah. So it was funny because I really thought we were going to like super relate in racing because a lot of his businesses, but he's not, he's into racing, but he's not that into racing. You know what I mean? There was other things that we related on, but it was just funny because I was looking forward to, I was like, you know, we're going to chop it up.
Sure.
But we could relate on the racing stuff pretty good. But no, when he came in, he was in town. We were going to wrap a car together. And so when he came in, it was late. It was like midnight.
Oh, okay.
And we're shooting a podcast, right? We're barely getting through this thing. We were struggling. And so anyway, so after the podcast was over, as soon as this is what always happens. As soon as we walk out that door, you'll probably tell me this badass story. Yeah, or this.
That you should have got on camera.
Yeah. Or that's 9 times out of 10, that's what it's been. But with Brad, it was different. When Brad hit the door, he turned around, his face just looked like he's seen a ghost. And I was like, what's up? And he was like, I didn't shout out my wife. So since then, I've made it a point to shout out Brad Felty's wife just about every episode, at least somewhere towards the
Hey, Brad's wife.
She's super cool, and she's been a pretty good sport about
great.
it. But anyway, I always kind of lean into that a little bit. To was there anything that we didn't cover, or anything that that stands out? Because we've covered a lot.
Sure. I mean, I don't know that there's anything we didn't touch on. I mean, we've touched on most of my background and things, I think. Nothing that I could think of.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I think that as long as it got across, you know, my few points that, you know, I love my wife. I love how much she's...
Shout out, Vanessa.
Shout out, Vanessa. There you go. And how much, you know, she helps us and my kids and my family, and they're all part of that. Because that's a big part of, you know, I grew up in family businesses. So they're going to be part of my family. I'm part of theirs, you know, and so on. And, you know, and how great of a team that I have, and how much I, you know, appreciate and respect them, and love that, you know, they love working there. I mean, that's important, you know, to me, and hopefully to them, that they enjoy what they do. And beyond that, I mean, I think, you know, I'm an open book. So, you know, even going forward, I mean, if everyone ever has questions about me or whatever, like, I am an open book. Like, don't feel afraid to not shoot me a message or anything like that. You know, I'm pretty easygoing. Same thing at trade shows. You know, I work a lot of different booths and things like that.
100%.
And just, I love every part of it. So,
no, it's been great. I mean, I will agree with you. You're easygoing, easy to talk to. It's been great being able to pick up the phone and call you and talk to you about stuff. Obviously, so if somebody wanted to jump in on one of the Rappers Roundtables, how would they do it? What's the easiest way?
Easiest way is to shoot me a message on Facebook, and I'll add your email on the email list.
Okay.
That's the easiest thing to do. I don't just post the links out there just because, again, I try to keep it more intimate, less people. But just shoot me an email or a direct message. You can email me. It's chris@crystalcoastgraphics.com, or shoot me a message on Facebook at Chris Ulmer, Ulmer. And I can add you to the database.
Yeah, it's a lot of good value in there is all I'm saying. I think people... I don't know. I enjoy it. I like seeing the email come through, and you know, it's just it's just convenient. You know what I mean? You see, you know, Tuesday rolls around, it pops up. Hey, we're doing that. Yeah, so that's another good thing to point out. Tuesday at 8
p.m. Eastern time. That's providing we could do it. You know, like most weeks that's when it would be. I don't usually deviate from the day or the time.
Sure.
But as long as I'm around and can get to a computer and everything else, that's when we do it. Yeah.
Very cool. And then I guess if anybody has any questions on, you know, the PDAA or UASG stuff, any of that's any of your trainings or anything like that, they have any questions for
just shoot me a message. If you're, you know, a shop, I'd really look into UASG stuff. I mean, I've got a big benefit from a shop standpoint of being part of that organization. I think it's really, a really good organization as far as, you know, growing the industry. And it's the only one that really offers a shop certification.
Sure.
You know, so I think that's great. PDAA is great as well. You know, more installer focused versus shop. You know, and you know, they both have their different avenues as far as what they kind of cover in a course. But I think they're both very great organizations with good futures and outlooks. And
I'll say they're both very fortunate to have people like you that are involved. That makes a big difference.
Sure.
You know what I mean? A lot of these organizations can get a little stiff, a little stale. You know what I mean? So it's good having creative people that are passionate about the industry involved with it. So very, very cool, man. Well, thanks again for coming out.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed the hell out of it. Lambert, we good?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Josh.
Cool. Very good. Very good. All right, let's go.